thoughts going in opposite direction. So maybe what you have to learn to focus, concentrate. Lack of concentration can be possible. That is, and I will tell you a lot of stories about fishes and all, how this is connected as we go further. The other thing is damru. Damru is what? A musical instrument. I think Dr. Pai was mentioning about how important is the damru and how important was veena and sitar and all those instruments, and Shiva was dancing with damru. So somehow maybe this nakshatra is connected with some instrument playing, just as with Shravana nakshatra. That's also one nakshatra which is closely associated with the playing of instruments. This nakshatra also is related to that. So maybe if you have problems or people who are into this Revati nakshatra, uh, if if they want to energize themselves, listening to some music or playing some music can be a theme in itself. So that's why I say when you see those things, try to make your own points, and that's how you learn Jyotish. I feel
Quickly with the damru, it's very much like our heart. How many hearts
exactly.
we have,
Yes,
measuring the
yes,
lifespan. And you think of
yeah,
tal and
yeah.
kal.
Tal and Kal.
Literally.
It
So Mahadeva, like even this Moksha Tandav, he's holding one hand, he's standing with one hand, but he's got the damru still in the other. So all the
correct.
forms of Lord Shiva, they always have this in these tandavs.
Correct. Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
I feel as a physicist, I feel that it's the time shape, the cone, the light cone. Always feel that
It
as a
does look
relativist
like
physicist,
that.
that looks
It
like that. Yeah.
does look like that's
Exactly.
very interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe going from one realm to the other, and which Pushan does. We'll come to that too. It has got its own meaning. So talking about some astronomical facts, I think I always like astronomy. Here is this Pisces constellation. This is all the Pisces constellation. So you can see one head of the fish here, and the other fish is going in this direction. So one fish is going in this direction, the other fish is going in this direction, something like that. And this is a Yogatara of Revati, this star. This star is a Yogatara of Revati, Zeta Piscium. And this line, the line which you see here, is nothing but the ecliptic line. So the ecliptic very closely passes through the Yogatara of Revati. Okay, so that's why Revati, the star of Revati, lies very close to the ecliptic line. That's one thing to notice. And it is at Pisces 26 degree 2 minutes. So that's the exact, of course, sidereal degrees. So this is a sidereal degree. It's where the Yogatara of Revati lies. If you see into the big star, big sky constellation, very near to the Pegasus, you have the Pisces. Next to Andromeda, you have this Pisces constellation. This entire region is Pisces, where you have your Revati Nakshatra. Anyway, now let's understand some mythology story. Going to the Greek mythology, it's associated with the legend Aphrodite and her son Eros visited Syria, and they fled from the monster Typhon by jumping into Euphrates River and transforming into uh, it's not uh, it's not Pisces, I should say. It's by transforming into fishes. So just with this story, someone went somewhere, they fled and transformed into fishes. So let
Well,
me correct that.
Aphrodite would be Shukra as well, so there could be some connection. It would be in
Yes,
Greek. It's
I
fascinating
think
that way.
Eros is Kamadeva kind of thing, right? If I'm
They
not mistaken.
accommodate, yeah, Kamadev, yeah, for sure.
Kamadev.
Yeah.
And that is, as I think Evji, you mentioned, fleeing, fighting, fleeing. That's also one theme that is coming
Escape,
up. Escape,
escape, breaking out of
escape.
prison. Think about it, it's a lot.
Yes,
Whether it's death,
exactly.
breaking out of the prison of the body, whether it's
Correct,
breaking out of the prison of the mind, whether you're losing
correct.
your mind in a good way or bad way,
Exactly.
yes, all of
Eh,
that. Yeah.
all of that. So just by listening to the stories, and also connected with river, connected with some water body. So these things, so what are the things that you can understand is fleeing, which we say escapism, fear and all. They transform into fishes, so shape shifting. Fluidity. Now, what is shape shifting? Not someone like a mermaid shifting from human beings to animals or animals to birds, not like some ghost parameters I'm talking about, but fluidity in nature, fluidity adjusting, compromising. you can, in any situation you put them, they may be able to adjust. They may be able to compromise, or they may be able to adjust to their surrounding nation, surrounding environment. That's what, when I say shape shifting, it's a fluidity in behavior, fluidity in thought, fluidity in mental actions, mentality, and all those things. Of course, they were going inside the river and traveling. So traveling becomes one of the theme for Revati Nakshatra. How they travel? They jumped into that river. So the river theme, the water body. So what is, and so the boats, ships, yachts, all those things becomes important. The boatman, and I will also talk about Pushan and all. So just with this story, no, just it's like 3-line story, but at least you can get about so many qualities to learn from. So that's what I say. Whenever you hear the story, understand the meaning, understand the themes, understand what you can get from. So these are some of the things that are associated with this Nakshatra Revati. If you really want, when the sun transits dates in Revati, it spans from Pisces 16 degree 40 minutes to 30 degree. And the sun transits this part of the sky from the first 2 weeks of April. That is when the sun is transiting through Revati Nakshatra. Understand which crops grow, understand what festivals we celebrate, understand the theme, understand. So these are the things, try to get those. Of course, there's a nice little person here. I think they have put a lot of makeup, it seems. I don't know. But that's how, when I put Pushan, he comes. Pushyati causes, it's a god of meeting, marriage, journeys, roads, feeding of cattle. These are all things associated with Pushan. He's a guide for the soul. As Dr. Pai was saying, that I may talk about, I don't know, maybe I should just mention, as Dr. Pai also mentioned, after you die in Hindu mythology, it says a soul goes to another world, and this person, Pushan, he helps them to cross the mythological river Vaitarni, where the souls go from this loka to the other loka. And this Vaitarni is very closely follows to the banks of the southern gates of the Yamloka. So he takes the person from one land to the other. So again, there are some themes to learn from this thing too. I will come to it later, but generally, he protects travelers from bandits and beasts. So it's also a protector. So protection theme is also associated with Revati. He guides towards rich pastures and wealth, because this Revati star is also called as the wealthy star. So some wealth associated themes can also be associated with Revati. He's one of the Adityas, of course. Now his look is described as he has got braided hair and beard. In some text, his look is described as that. His chariot is pulled by goats, which is very interesting, because if you see, if you put Revati, I think, what is that nakshatra? Probably, I'm just thinking, why goats? I was just thinking, I'm not able to get, but somehow it was said that chariots pulled by goats carries a golden ladder, symbol of activity and movement. And of course, we also know the story that he was invited to Daksha's Yajna, and he was attempting to eat the Daksha Yajna oblations. And then the Veerbhadra comes and he gives a blow to his, I think, face, and his teeth were knocked out. So especially in offerings, he's given as curd rice and liquid food, so that it's easy to ingest for him. So, and he helps, as I mentioned, he helps the souls to cross the river Vaitarni, and he guards the livestock, and he also finds the livestock and find lost lives. For example, what does that mean? Find lost livestock. So with these themes, can you say what are the themes that can be associated with all this Pushan? He's traveling. He guides the soul from one loka to other. That means he's also good in traveling. He's also good in navigation. So probably you should see that people who are good in navigation, people who are good in traveling, can be associated with Revati. And he's a boatman, some karma with water transport. I still remember a chart came long time back. I think his 3-4 planets were in Revati. I said, what are you doing? Like, what is your job occupation connected to some water body? He said, I have he was from Kerala, I guess, some city in Kerala, maybe from Alapi, or I don't know. But he had a boating industry. Like, no, he used to make boats, and he was having some business on boating, houseboats, and all those things. Again, Revati theme, having 3 or 4 planets in Revati. Getting wealth from boating industries or something like that, houseboat and all those. Protect animals. So protect animals means what? You can think of some animal organizations you can work with and all those. Of course, his teeth were knocked out, that poor fellow. So suffers in fight with powerful enemies. So, they'll be subjected to much more high forces, and better not to, what to learn from this is better not to go into those and avoid unnecessary disputes. That's something to learn. Enjoy liquid drinks and simple food, so curd rice, liquid diet and all, poor fellow not able to eat anything, so simple foods may make him happy. So so these are some themes which are there for Revati Nakshatra. Now, which
Also,
other god? Yeah,
Togiji, the end of life as well. You
I
think
have
about the
end of
natural
life.
12th house, end of life, you can't
Correct.
digest a lot, your teeth are
True.
going. There's a
True.
lot of
Exactly.
connection with this leaving the body here.
Especially. Yes, and I will come to that too, talking about Jesus Christ, which I think Dr. Pai also mentioned, because when you see Jesus Christ, what photo is associated with him? Like he's surrounded with sheep, goats, taking care of them on a pasture land and all, just with Revati themes and all.
They
And
call him the shepherd.
they
He's
call him,
called.
yes, they call him the
Yeah.
shepherd. Even Lord Krishna was called as shepherd. So all this, as these points were already discussed, so not going much into that, but I think there's some themes associated with and he was a protector of people, he was caring for the people, all those things. So Jesus Christ is also closely associated with Revati and Balrama. We know the story, how Dr. Pai also mentioned. So like how, so this is a concept which Kapil was saying, time dilation, because Kakudmi was the father of Revati, and he goes to Brahmaloka seeking a good match for the daughter, and they just spent some time in Brahmaloka, and then many years passed, and Brahma suggested, now the only suitable candidate for your daughter is Balram, and then he sends back them to the world. Balram meets him, but Revati is too low height for him, and then he uses a blow to on her head, makes her equal height, and then they are happily married and live forever after. Who knows? But what do you understand from this time dilation effects? Maybe either they may be too punctual or maybe very unpunctual. Who knows? Some quality of that can be, and
Okay.
yeah.
Interesting here, because isn't Balaramji said to be Ashlesha Jatam?
Yes, that's
Ashlesha Jatam, right? In his
Yeah.
mantras?
Yes.
true. Yeah.
Yes.
So Ashlesha here, that's just interesting.
Ashlesha,
He
yeah,
he is
because
the avatar of Anandan, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Anandan, yeah, yes.
Yeah.
And if you
Sheshna.
see Sheshnag, and if you put Revati, comes to the 12th or 9th house of Balrama. So it's
Hmm.
past life incarnation. Some association of karma with
There must be
Revati.
something. That's a
Something.
fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so time dilation effects. Now, when you say about time dilation, who is the person that comes in mind is Albert Einstein, and we will see some of his chart again when I show some personalities with Revati. So time dilation, not keeping track with time or keeping too much track in time, something like that. And navigation, people who navigate, people who travel, what they time and traveling, time travel, maybe time travel theme. That's also another Revati theme, maybe. So, anyways, what is a tree associated with that? It's an Indian butter tree. Now, this Indian butter tree has got lot of, because remember, it comes in the 12th house, so there is also 6th house. I was looking, it's a very good thing to see about trees and health benefits. That's something, the whole research topic, which someone should focus into it more, I feel. I should say someone, it should be me who knows, but anyways, will pass on to someone else. But try to see that, because it's like such an important thing. How can we use these tree qualities for health benefits of people? But anyway, this Indian butter tree, they say, pacifies a lot of vata and pitta dosha, but increases kapha dosha. Its bark is used for diabetes, rheumatism, ulcers, bleeding. It's an anti-inflammatory, analgesic, antipyretic, infertility, hyperglycemia, bacterial infections, even can cure some type of cancer. If you want to go into this website, go read about them. It's a whole huge list what they do. I'm not going to put it here, all those. But you can see that how many health benefits this tree has. There are some important aspects of this tree, which I will. Its flowers are eaten also fresh and used for alcohol distillation. This tree is also called as mahua. Mahua is a thing which is especially in Bihar and in eastern Uttar Pradesh. These people use for alcohol, for preparation of alcohol. So, Pushan is what? It's a deity of enjoyment, deity of happiness. Alcohol, why you drink alcohol? To become happy, correct? Ultimately, you become happy or next day hangover, that's a different story. But it's alcohol distillation.
Yeah, or if
so.
you get your teeth knocked out, right? Like in a fight or something, right?
Well, there
Yeah,
seems to be a theme here of a drunkenness, like even with Brigu Rishi having to get the final eye of arrogance poked out,
correct.
even
Yes,
Rishi himself, but it's the path, the intoxication with the path itself of who he thinks he is to even curse Vishnu.
correct.
It's very fascinating. It seems to be so, and even with the Balaram thing, I was just contemplating that, like knocking her down. Like knocking her down a notch. What is this theme going on here with
Maybe it's
humility?
this Revati,
Even the feet of the Devata is Revati. So it's like there's something with this whole humbling.
humbly. Maybe
Something.
with Revati individuals, maybe their spouses or maybe their husband are disproportionate heights. Can be possible.
That and maybe in temperament too. There could
Temperament
be
too.
it's
Yes.
it's interesting for people to know these like contrasts here. It seems to be like a theme that's carrying through.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
So that's what I want. Maybe, yeah. Some contrasting themes with height or physical or mental. Physical is what we see, but there are some things which can be even mental abilities or intellectual abilities. Who knows? They may be highly intellectual. Who knows? Highly intellectual again makes you disbalance in your thinking, in your thought. Who knows? And it's also this tree is given as dowry in marriage by Chepang community of Nepal, which was another interesting thing which I found was okay. So again, something about why this tree is given as a dowry. Because of such, maybe for making alcohol and making money. Who knows? I'm just saying, but can be used for that too. And moreover, it has got a lot of health benefits. So why not? So this tree is considered very sacred or very beneficial. That's one thing which is the whole crux of the story. Revati characters is the wealthy star, foundation above cows, foundation below calves, desire is to become lord of animals. That's why Dr. Pai was saying about Pashupati Nath. Pashu means animals, Pati, Lord, Nath means also Lord, Pashupati Nath, so Lord of animals. The Shakti is Shira Dhyapani Shakti, power to nourish through milk. So again, Shira Dhyapani, something with milk, cows, calves, nourishment, care, prosperity, all these things are associated with Revati. And result of Shakti-based desire is nourishment of the world. So as you said, hospice center, nurses and all those, again, they are all like nourishment, caring. So maybe those people who are into those profession are strongly associated with Revati Nakshatra. Dietitian maybe, probably. They can be
Sleep
associated.
sleep
Sleep
doctors,
yes.
pharmaceuticals, things.
Pharmaceuticals, true.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Dietitian and all can be associated with them. Revati theme, Purushartha Moksha, Gana Deva, Trimurti Shiva, animal is female elephant, bird is pigeon. And remember, all the tattvas of this nakshatra it's a highly sattvic nakshatra, the most sattvic nakshatra among all the 27 nakshatra. I think it is Chitra, which is the most tamasic, I guess. And this one is the most sattvic. And I think the most rajasic is what? Ashwini, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
Ashwini, correct. Yeah. So this is the most sattvic nakshatra. If you see the planetary rulers, the Rashi Lord, Nakshatra Lord, Navamsha Lord, of course, it falls in the Pisces. So all the four padas will have Rashi Lord as Jupiter. The Nakshatra Lord is Mercury, we know. Remember what Navamsha we have. The first Navamsha of Revati will be occupied by Sagittarius. Second will be by Capricorn. Third will be by Aquarius. Fourth will be again by Pisces. So the fourth pada also becomes, what is that called? I forget that name. It's
Moksha Pad or something, right?
Gargotam.
Vargottam
Vargottam.
pada.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
Vargottam
makes
pada.
sense, yeah.
It's a Vargottam pada. The fourth pada is Vargottam pada. And the planetary rulers are mostly Mercury, Jupiter, and Saturn. These are the three planets playing. So these nakshatra will have those qualities of Jupiter, Mercury, and Saturn. Saturn, seva. Saturn is nothing but caring, nourishment. Maybe all those things can be maybe in second and third pada. Mercury and Jupiter, these are the planets of intellectuals. These are the planets of, wisdom, logic, rationality, and all those qualities too. So do not think that Revati is something, maybe it may be highly intellectual and logical planet too. And if you
Very
see,
much.
yeah, and I will talk about some other persons involved in this Revati. Talking about animal, female elephant, you see, whenever you see a herd of elephant, how they walk is the younger ones will be at the center and the all elder ones will be surrounding that. So again, what it shows, the protection and the care for these elephants, how they have for their babies. So again, caring, nourishment theme, because this nakshatra is, the animal symbol for this nakshatra itself is female elephant. And you see how this small baby elephant is at the center of this herd. So talking about that, what are some persons? So this guy, John Peake Knight, he was born on 13 December 1828 to 23rd July, I think 1886. He invented the traffic light because traffic light in 1868, and he was an English railway manager, and he was a person who is responsible for making those traffic lights. Why I was saying, because I wanted to see who are because this nakshatra is for traveling. For traveling, what we need, we see traffic lights. So there has to be some connection with that. And if you see his chart, you see in his chart, he has got Ketu in Revati. Now, time unknown, we don't know the Lagna, but Ketu and Rahu will not change much. But he has got Ketu in Revati here. And that makes
And
sense.
it's
That
second from the moon.
second from
That's
the moon.
It's a yoga.
Yes.
Anything
It's a
second from the moon or 12th from the moon, first from the moon is a yoga with the moon.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
anything. So it's a big influence on the moon.
And
on
that too, it
Janma.
is Ketu. It's a nodal axis.
Yeah.
So he has to do something with it,
Yeah.
with the Revati. So that was interesting to see about how his Revati thing was falling on. That makes sense why he has got Revati. And there was something, time dilation. We did talk about time dilation. So our friend, Mr. Einstein, I think if you see his Venus, 24-degree Pisces, which is again Revati Nakshatra for him. He has got a bunch of planets in Pisces Nakshatra, actually, Pisces Rashi. But Venus is in Revati. Of course, Saturn is in Uttara Bhadrapada, and the Sun is in, again, Purva Bhadrapada. Mercury is in, I think, where is Mercury? In Uttara Bhadrapada, but Venus is in Revati Nakshatra. Time dilation, thinking, abstract thinking, mathematician itself. So a lot of mathematician, when I was looking at their charts, I find we think that mathematicians, what has to do with Pisces, because here the Mercury debilitates. But a lot of mathematicians are born into this. Yep. And I have the whole, I have done some research for mathematicians in coming slides. This is one guy, Manjul Bhargav. He's a Canadian born, young guy, 1974 born. You see, very famous. He's living right now. And moon in Revati for him. You see, I don't know about the time. Time is unknown. I just put some random time. But moon is in Revati Nakshatra and 22 degrees. So naturally, his moon will still be, his nakshatra is Revati.
And
Then
Guru
I saw
12th from the moon again.
Guru is 12th from the moon again.
Yeah, and Guru is a major planet of a big mind.
Correct.
Big ability to grasp deeper, a subject deeper.
Yes.
To have meditation on a subject.
Absolutely.
Guru, yeah.
You see this guy. Everyone knows this guy, correct? There was a movie, correct? What was that?
Yeah, The Beautiful Mind. Beautiful Mind.
The Beautiful
Russell
Mind.
Crowe,
Yeah, John Forbes Nash. Again, if you see, he has got moon and Mars in Revati.
And
he was
Mangal
also
and Guru in Parivartana. And
yes.
again, Guru 12, second this time from the moon, but still
Exactly.
is still yeah.
He was also a mathematician, correct? So mathematician. So I got interested after seeing all this.
Game theory and all that, yes.
Game theory and all, exactly. So I said, why not do some research? So here is some research. I just typed in Google 10 most influential mathematicians of today. Something I put in Google. 10 names came up. These were the 10 names that came. I don't know who they were. I never heard about those. I'm not a mathematician, but these names came up. I said, let's look their charts. So I now, in few slides, this is just my research for Revati. I don't know why I did that. It just came up. Let's go through the charts of each of this
Planets
person.
intelligence. The planets of intelligence are very common.
Exactly.
Second or 12th from the moon. In
Exactly.
Gemini, Rahu, Guru, Surya, and Ketu are the big guys for intelligence. And you
So
notice a
Rahu,
lot of
Ketu,
these
Guru,
guys,
Surya. Okay.
yeah, a lot of these guys have this exact, yeah.
Now, here I want to show, for example, you see Sun. Now I'm just showing not particularly Revati, but about how the influence of Pisces. Okay. Now here you see, and also see this Jupiter Ketu is as both are here. Jupiter is aspecting by fifth aspect to the Pisces. This is Keith Devlin, the first one. The Terence Tao guy has got Jupiter in Revati. I'm just going through these slides as all the 10 people I have. Here, if you see, it's Ian Stewart. So many planets in the Mercury sign, Kanya. They are all expecting again the Pisces. Another guy, John Collins Stilwell here, the fourth guy. He's having Mars is aspecting Revati. Then this is Bruce Brent. Again, planets all in Uttar Bhadrapada, Pisces sign. This is in Tim Govers, Uttar Bhadrapada Jupiter in Pisces. Peter Sarnak. I don't find much of Peter Sarnak because he may be in D9 or his Lagna, which I don't know. No one's time I know here. So I've just taken their birthday. Martin Harrer, Moon and Jupiter in Pisces. In fact, Jupiter is in Revati. Your Moon is in Uttar Bhadrapada for Ingrid. And Andrew Willis is Sun and Mercury in Pisces again. Little bit go into deeper analysis now, what I see. So what I see for the first guy, Keith Devlin, is Mercury is fourth from Jupiter. Mercury fourth from Jupiter is what? That means Mercury is in Kendra from Jupiter. Okay. Terence Tao, Mercury again fourth from Jupiter, Kendra. Ian Stewart, Mercury and Jupiter are together again. Okay. See, Mercury, Jupiter together, it's like, what is that? It's, as I said, in Padas and Rashis.
It's a Gita yoga. It gives a memory, like an ability to remember like things like the Gita.
Exactly.
So it's often involved in intelligence yogas as well. You'll find some of the what is it, Vrinci yoga, I think. There's a few that involve Mercury and Jupiter. Saraswati yoga is always involved, but you need Shukra involved too. Yeah.
Correct. Now, why I focused in Mercury? Because Mercury is mathematics and all those things. So I was like, let's see what's happening with that. And I found certain characteristics. John Slam, Mercury is third from Jupiter. Now, what is third? Jupiter, if you take third from Jupiter, third is what? Subconscious mind, the thought, the writing, the communication is what the third house. So third from Jupiter, Mercury for John Stilwell.
Bruce Burnt. That Mercury's 11th from,
Mercury
Jupiter.
Yeah. 11th from Mercury.
That 11th house is important for some of the Brahma yogas. So what you're pointing out here, actually, it could even be for the listeners, the consideration of the 11th house, because there's an awful lot of third from. That means the 11th is at play.
11th is 311 axis.
Yep, it's that 311 axis that yes, it's a very important one, right? Because Argalas and all of that stuff. So yeah.
Correct. And Bruce Brent, again, Mercury third from Jupiter. Tim Grover's, Mercury is 9th from Jupiter. 9th from Jupiter is what? Jupiter is 5th. Jupiter is aspecting. Peter Sarnak, Mercury 7th from Jupiter, Kendra position. Martin Harrer, Mercury is 8th from Jupiter. 8th means what? It's again, it's 8th is something again, hidden house, the 8 and 6 relation. 6th is again a karmic house.
What would be interesting for the listeners to do is to find the different ways that these people's intelligence worked.
Correct.
Because what that's probably going to highlight is how different.
True.
True. Yeah.
So Andrew Willis, third from Mercury. Jupiter is third from Mercury. John Nash. I also included John Nash because he was also a mathematician. Mercury is again third from Jupiter. Manjul Bhargav, Jupiter 8th from Mercury. Then our famous guy, Ramanujan, we all know. And I just saw his chart. Jupiter and Mercury again together.
Of
So I'm just
course.
combining, it just came out, with for the following research. So either it's third house, 311 axis, eighth, very less. Many times they are in Kendra position, and one time there was also aspect. So this is what I just saw from just random charts. This came out. The other thing people say is also Ketu. Ketu is also mathematics, they say. So even if you
Well,
say
that's
Ketu,
important. It co-rules Pisces in many,
co-rules
many,
Pisces. Exactly.
yes, Ketu is
Exactly.
known
So
for
let's see
that.
what Ketu and Jupiter are doing. There is also something very strange which came out. For Keith Devlin, Ketu and Jupiter are together. You can see my slides here. I think maybe I will just go Keith Devlin. Keith Devlin, you can see this chart, Ketu and Jupiter together. So you can go, these are the only slides which I have. I've just taken from that. So what I have learned from them, that's what I'm sharing with you. Terence Tao, again, Ketu is third from Jupiter. Ian Stewart, Ketu is fourth from Jupiter, again, Kendra houses. John Stilwell, Ketu is ninth from Jupiter, that means Jupiter is aspecting. Bruce Burnt, Ketu is fifth from Jupiter, again, there's aspect of Jupiter. Tim Grovers, Ketu is 10th from Jupiter. 10th is what? Karmic house. Peter Sarnath, again Ketu third from Jupiter. Martin Herrer, I did not get anything, but Ketu is second from Jupiter. Ingrid Debauch, I don't know how to say this name. Ketu and Jupiter are together in the first house, like they are in the same house. Andrew Wiles, Ketu is third from Jupiter. So again, third 11 axis. John Nash, Ketu is 8th from Jupiter. Manjul Bhargav, Ketu is 4th from Jupiter. That means it's 4-10 axis, the karma 10 axis. So Jupiter, Ketu is 4th from Jupiter, it means Jupiter is 10th from Ketu. And Srinivas Ramanujan is Ketu is 3rd from Jupiter. So again, third house, 311 axis, 8th, 6 axis, Kendras and aspect again plays a role with Ketu also and with Mercury also.
Yeah,
I
so
don't know
sixth
what
house
it
is
is.
not 6,000 not playing out, right? So none of these is having 6,000 problems.
Yeah. But 8-6 you can say 8-6 when you say 8.
Yeah, true. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, third and sixth house become major places of intelligence once again in Gemini. So there's some different rules.
Right.
It would be interesting for the listeners. It's very fascinating that we're doing astrology lessons for Revati, because I'm just thinking of it's very odd. We've never done this. It's just an interesting thing to think of. But I would say that it'd be very interesting for people to get these charts if they're interested in further study of this, to look at these yogas from the moon, because a lot of those charts you showed, these grahas, these key grahas were either second, 12th. That was the majority of the charts. They were second or 12th.
Yeah.
Or sun,
From
one of the
moon, yeah.
luminaries. And then the other thing that was common, if they didn't have that, they had it in Kendras. So actually something's happening with the purpose of birth here too. That's fascinating to look at. And Jupiter is a planet. We say in the Kavach for Jupiter, please protect my intelligence. We don't ask Mercury. Mercury's information, but he's not intelligent. Intelligence is something deeper than information. Your ability to retain that information might be linked with intelligence. But intelligence does not rely on information. That's a big, it's a
yes, absolutely
gap, right? So these people, it's interesting that you've done this, because even speaking of Revati with samadhi or meditation, you could say, or getting lost in something. As we're showing this, I was just thinking, okay, what's the omen of us doing these little lessons? We don't usually do this. But I was thinking, fascinating, because the ability to have first dharana, like I've been thinking, I taught this thing on yoga, so it's actually like fresh on my mind. Dharana being that mangal, the energy of the concentration, but guru with jnanam, with the ability to carry. He's akash, right? He's sound. So if you watch a sound wave, like if something drops the sound, it goes out like this. It just continues through. And that's really what jnanam is the continuation of the original point of concentration. So this ability to carry it through to samadhi. It's like jnanam and dharana are in samadhi. You have to have both of those to have samadhi. So guru gives that faith, actually, in one's focus. In some way, it's got to, these people probably had faith in their research, like their ability to
research. Exactly.
So there's something intelligent about hope and faith. I know that we like to knock those things down in modern civilization, but there's something very intelligent about maintaining hope. Because all of these people, one reason Jupiter is so intelligent, because he's not associated with information. Once again, it's intelligence. It's a
Absolutely.
totally different thing.
Correct.
So fascinating, what Jupiter values is interesting to consider there. We'll leave the religious stuff. And when we hear faith, we often think of religion. But you have to have faith in yourself to even go on the spiritual path. You have to have faith to focus on one thing. You have to have that hope or faith in yourself or in the object that you're focused on. So there's something to do with that holding your continuous flow. With Jupiter has something to do with that. So it's just interesting that you've pointed this out. And we're speaking of Revati Nakshatra is nothing but the culmination of the entire path.
Exactly.
It's nothing but that result. Yeah.
It was interesting. Then why I
Yeah.
was interested, because then I found while I was doing, I did not realize, but then I thought even I have got Jupiter Ketu together.
You do,
and Mercury
yeah.
and Mercury is 11 from Jupiter too. So it's 311
Well, that
actually
is a
playing there too.
Brahma. It's one of the Brahma yogas. This is
Okay,
the like one
yeah,
of
I
the
don't know
Brahma
about
yogas.
that.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
It's exactly that. It's one
so
of them. Yeah.
maybe because I also used to like mathematics, and
Isn't
mathematics
your
was one of
Guru in
my
a sign of Mangal?
yeah.
Rashi of Mangal. So once again, it
So
holds more
it's
concentration.
whole. So
Yeah.
that's what. So I like this to do. Maybe sometimes like 50 charts of mathematicians, maybe 50 charts of entrepreneurs, maybe something like that, and see a commonality theme, what is there, and learn from it. That's something which is like a project which I have in my mind. I don't know, but there is always lack of time, but something to think about. So what the main point is, the breakdown is, don't think Pisces as something which is Mercury's debilitation sign and it doesn't do good. No, that is something to be broken off.
I agree. I
Yeah.
love that you're saying.
Yeah.
I agree 100%. I actually think Pisces is Meena Rashi tends to be very inventive.
Yes. And it's
Very
abstract thinking. Ketu is what abstract
Yeah.
thinking. Mathematics is
And very
abstract
good at
thinking.
running things. I've
Yes.
actually seen many Revati people very good at running things. You wouldn't expect
True.
Pisces to be that always, based on what people's interpretation of it is, but it's very capable Rashi in the world, very capable people.
True.
Yeah, very commonly.
So moving forward, and no, it happened to me that I was just looking there's some nice people who are interested in physics. It's I forgot sound, and it was something shock and awe, the story of electricity. There's one nice YouTube video, and I was just looking, and there are so many how the story of electricity, how electricity was developed and all those things. And it's a 3-hour BBC documentary or something like that. Very nice. And when I was making our slides, then suddenly talks about this James Clerk Maxwell, and he said that he was a great mathematician too. Then I said, oh, I was doing mathematics slides as just that slide, and I was like, let me see his chart. What is that? And this is a chart of James Clerk Maxwell. And again, you see, he was a big mathematician, not a physicist. And you see again the combination Jupiter Ketu. Randomly it came out, but still Jupiter and Ketu again together.
Those would be the classical lords of Meena Rashi. We're not commonly taught that, but it is.
Yes.
And if you look at the moon again, the moon is hemmed between two karakas of intelligence, Rahu and Surya.
Yes.
Again, this is a really common thing.
Because Ketu also rules Pisces, correct?
Yeah, exactly. So Jupiter, Ketu, Mercury is definitely a very intelligent combination, and they're in Kendras from each other. It's beautiful.
So again. Then again in that movie, I don't know why I saw that movie this week. And again, they were talking about Thomas Edison and Nikola Tesla. And it so happened that they were saying that Thomas Edison invented the bulb and it was a DC, and then Nikola came out with the concept of AC. They both were tough competitors.
Well, actually, he kind of stole Tesla's work. So I can't support that he wasn't. He wasn't as
What-
intelligent. I'm just saying he was more of a
Yeah.
business mind.
But the thing is,
And-
what we have
yeah.
to see is Thomas Edison, they both are, if let's say he invented the bulb or light, of course, what is Pushan? He's Aditya, he's the sun god, he's a light, giver of light. And you see this guy, he's got Ketu in Revati.
Look at his moon, though. It's qualitatively different. If you look,
Yes.
he's
moon
got
is Mula.
Mercury, the businessman, second from the moon with
Exactly.
Mongol. And he was
Exactly.
ambitious and he actually stole his stuff. I'm just saying that it's fascinating to look at the quality of the.
Correct.
Yeah.
And this
the
guy
different-
also has got Revati. You see, this
Right.
fellow,
And,
of course,
and
don't
it's
believe
12 from moon.
12 from moon. Yes, yes.
Again, I'm just Rahu and Jupiter, two grahas of
Correct.
intelligence in Meena, 12th from moon.
So
So it's just again, same thing, but not a businessman, right? Not a
both came out
business.
to, both came out to be Revati again. And they gave something to the world, which was useful, bulb. Imagine our life without bulb. Imagine our life without AC current. Forget about all that. Tough competitors. You see their Rahu Ketu position. Edison's and Nikola Tesla.
Poor Tesla. Poor Tesla. He's one of my favorites as I've studied him.
I know.
Yeah.
Exactly opposite. Rahu Ketu, and here where Ketu is at 29 degree in Virgo, he has got Rahu at that. Now, let me go back. You see this? And it's tough competitors. Maybe they are complementing each other.
I wouldn't know if Tesla would say that. But
I know. I'm just saying. People, no, this is another synastry. You just put synastry.
No. I mean, I would say that Edison is a great chart to study for a very clever businessman.
Yeah,
very
true.
clever. Cunning. And that's where the Ucha Grahas, you have to be careful, is Rahu. His Rahu and Ketu would be considered a form of Ucha. Okay. And then he's got that Shashi Yoga with Shani, which says that you will take other people's wealth. That's one of the things that it says. And actually, it's known that.
No, but time is unknown. So we don't know about his Lagna. So don't believe his
I believe
Lagna.
he wasn't. I think he is actually Vrishchika Lagna. How did you get that? Did you just put anything in there?
I just put something. Yeah, maybe I
I've
just
seen
put
his
something.
chart before. I think you can get it. I think you
Okay.
can get his chart. Yeah.
Maybe.
And definitely Tesla. Tesla does there's 2 times available for him.
Yeah, 2 times available.
One gives him Ashwini and the other one gives him Revati, so it's not far off.
Okay.
Either way, the yogas are there from the moon.
Okay.
And you can look at from the moon with Mr. Edison. It's funny because I've been telling people Mula is the nakshatra very common of wealth.
Mm-hmm.
And he's another good example of this, like billionaires, millionaires, people who know how to make a lot of wealth. So he's a good chart to study for many of these things.
Yeah. And especially to do synastry, when 2 people are having a competition, how planets influence.
I'm not hating on him, okay?
Yeah.
But I'm just saying he was pretty cunning, and I'm not so sure he gave happiness to the people around him. I'll say it nicely.
Because Sandeep also mentioned, correct, when we were trying in our talk, Sandeep, you remember you said Rahu over Mercury and Ketu, Mars. Rahu is over Mars. That's competition.
Pure competition, pure enemy. This guy will be your enemy. You'll fight against this guy. That has a destiny to make you angry, So Tesla's Mars is getting aggravated by Edison's Rahu. You can't expect more. So there'll be anger energy for sure. Or there's energy of Mars energy will be triggered.
Edison just eclipsed him. I mean, the poor guy, they thought he was crazy. He wasn't crazy.
Exactly. But anyway, now let's go back to the material world, to spiritual world. Anandamayi Ma, we all know her. Time and of course Rotten rating B, but you see her ascendant and Venus is in almost exaltation degree. So she was spiritualist, and we all know Venus is very near to exaltation point. So that's another form of Revati theme too, getting lost in the mind. So Venus is, of course, sex and all those things we say, but then it's also spiritual. What is spiritual? Getting completely lost in God, basically. Absorbed.
absorbed. Yeah,
Yes,
Shukra is the enjoyer of beauty, whereas they say the moon is the producer of beauty, like the giver of beauty. But
correct.
Shukra, they say, is the enjoyer of beauty. So that's interesting. Yeah, and you will see that Samadhi is the enjoyer, the enjoying of the real beauty, whether it's sound,
Exactly.
sight, all those things. Yeah, this is beautiful. Beautiful chart, actually.
Yeah.
Another thing common with these moon yogas is suns, and I've said this a lot, so you guys probably heard it, but the association with Shani and the moon, second
Yeah.
from the moon, 12th from the moon, with the moon, or in a Kendra from the moon, with
And
saints.
Jupiter,
So whereas
Jupiter is
you,
also aspecting Venus.
which is beautiful. Yeah, that beautiful fifth house.
Yeah.
It's a very beautiful chart, actually. Even
Correct.
the moon Rahu is the Mars Rahu is very beautiful.
Yeah, this one.
That's actually very common yoga for focus.
Oh,
Can give
okay.
really sharp focus. If you look at like Einstein and a lot of these people that will have Mars Rahu, Mars Ketu can do it too. You saw it with Tesla, the node with Mars can give really serious. But she's got a classic, yoga for the sun being heavily influenced by Shani, and is a powerful Shani.
Yeah. So it's almost exalted Saturn, probably.
Yeah, it's a really beautiful chart. Look at this chart. Wow, it's beautiful.
Then this woman, PETA president here, of course, Revati, care for animals. And you may see this chart and say, what is this happening? Where is Revati here in this chart? But here, if you see, her Rahu is at 1 degree 3 minutes. Of course, this is from Parashara, but if you put her average mean Rahu, that mean Rahu comes in Gandanta point, very close to, it's in the Gandanta point of in Revati. So here it shows as Ashwini, but if you take the mean, it comes. So I don't know whether to take mean.
I actually use mean.
This is true. This is all true nodes. So you may think that there is nothing in Revati, but if you
now it's
think,
interesting because all of the Shiva nakshatras is very fascinating. Each one of the Shiva Trimurti nakshatras in Vimshodri have one of the grahas, each one. So there's Surya, Rahu, Budh. One of each of those nakshatras has a desire to be Pashupati, the Lord of animals. So Ardra for the Rahu has that desire, Uttara Falguni for the Surya,
correct.
And then Revati for the Mercury has that desire. So it is interesting because she does have the Shukra in Ardra.
Yeah. Of course, it's just not one planet which we have to see. There are many planets.
Yeah, like the loving of animals. Yeah. Interesting.
Then comes, I have this, because it's a Revati. So shipping companies. So what shipping companies will have? So then I just put in Google, which is the biggest shipping company. Then this name comes up. I don't know how you say Merck's. I don't know. Merck, what I don't know. But we always see this name. We always see this name, correct? In the containers, in the ship's containers and all those. And as far as now, it's the biggest shipping company by TEU capacity is something 20 ton equivalent, something unit capacity. And they say, what is Maersk, which is the biggest shipping company? Let's see if they have something to do with Revati or not. And then I just found what date it was established. And it was established on 16th April 1904 at Denmark. And you see this. There's a bunch of planets in Pisces. Pisces again, water body. Pisces again, shipping and all those. Transport.
I've actually seen wineries too. People who
wineries. Oh, okay.
Distilleries, things like that. Yeah.
Alcohol, wineries. Yes. Alcohol again.
You will see that. You will actually see that. Yeah, but that's a great one.
Yeah.
Really funny.
And moreover, Saturn is aspecting them too. You see, the third aspect of Saturn also forms. So, and a lot of Aries, you see, Ashwini and Bharani too, bunch of planets. Yeah, so very interesting. I think
Ashwini, it's like right after Amavasya. It's like right out. It's going to be after Amavasya, but it's interesting because Ashwini.
But Ashwini is also transportation.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. It's interesting. The Sampat Nakshatra from an Ucha point always defines something about. Yeah.
Somehow, I think it flowed this time. It was like, oh, okay, I'm seeing this themes. Fine.
Interesting.
Finally, my favorite section, festivals. What festivals do you think? It's eating time now. Oh my God, I'm already hungry now. So 1st to 13th April is when the sun transits Revati. So what festivals you people can think of? Think about it. So the first thing is Easter Day. We did talk about Jesus Christ. And we know, I mentioned this last time too, when is Easter celebrated? You first find the Sunday after the full moon following the spring equinox. So the spring equinox happens on 21st or 20th of March. You have to see when the full moon comes after that. And after that, what Sunday? That will be the Easter Sunday. So first, find the spring equinox, then find the full moon following that spring equinox, and then the Sunday after that full moon is the Easter. So the spring equinox is on 28th or 21st March. The full moon, the coming for the next year, or the 2023, the full moon is going to be on 6th April. So 6th April will be the following full moon after spring equinox. And the 9th April is going to, the Sunday after that full moon will be the Easter Day. So the Sunday which follows the full moon after the spring equinox is the Easter Day. So that's the criteria.
It's the resurrection. That's what it's
resurrection.
Is the resurrection,
Yes.
Sanjeevani.
Exactly. So Easter themes are exactly like Revati. So this is a time when we celebrate Easter. Perfect theme with Revati. Now, why I said Pitru Paksha, that comes in the 1st to 13th October. See, remember, when the sun is transiting on 1st to 13th April, what is opposite to it? When the sun is transiting last degree of Pisces, last few degrees, it's Kanya. When the sun transits Kanya from 16th September to 16th October, that is when the sun transits Kanya. So sometimes Pitru Paksha, things in Hinduism, dates go back and forth. So sometimes Pitru Paksha may come up in the month of maybe something like around in October month or something like that, if it is too late and all. Why? Again, because Mr. Pushan is helping to cross all the Atmans there. This is another April Fool's Day. We all know 1st April, that's what we do. Playing pranks. That's what we do. Mercury is Nakshatra. Pushan is protector, well-being. It's a fun nakshatra. It's a Mridu nakshatra, as Dr. Pai was saying. It's a fun nakshatra. So, and it's Mercury's nakshatra too. Mercury, what it does, it always, Mercury is a playful, it's a child, it's a teenage. What can a teenage do? Play pranks, correct? So April Fool's Day, perfect for Revati theme. The other thing is Gudi Padwa. Now, what is Gudi Padwa? Is actually, it comes again in the month of March and April. In a year, we will have 12 new moon, correct? 12 new moons in a year because of 12 new lunar months. So when the sun is transiting Pisces and a new lunar month begins, that day is Gudi Padwa. So sun has to go in that Pisces, and the new moon which happens, the next day is called as Gudi Padwa. Okay, so sun transit Pisces is happening from March 15 to April 15. We know that. Any new moon day that is occurring between these two dates, between March to April, mid-April to mid-March, on mid-March to mid-April, the new moon that is happening, that marks the end of that year, and next day will become the beginning of the year. That's a luni-solar calendar. Of course, there are some people who follows completely solar calendar in Kerala, in Tamil Nadu, in Orissa, in Assam, in Bengal and all. That is on 14th April. But there are many regions like Karnataka, in Maharashtra, in Andhra Pradesh, in many parts of region where they follow the luni-solar calendar type. Their new year begins when the sun is almost in Pisces, and the new moon, they also take into account the moon's position. So when the sun is in Pisces, moon is also in Pisces almost, then it's like, that's like the last month of the year. And when the moon goes after that, enters into Aries, that day becomes the Gudi Padwa. So sometimes Gudi Padwa can fall during the first 2 weeks of April. And remember what we do in Maharashtra, they will have such type of, it's almost like a flag position where you keep it looks like a flag decorated with flowers, leaves, clothes, and some copper vessel upside down. Looks like some Ketu significance here. Ketu is flag.
Very interesting, the pot upside down.
Yeah. Maybe it's a Ketu.
Also thinking about
Ketu is upside down.
Yeah.
Well,
Maybe.
Shukracharya, we were just talking about the
Yeah.
whole upside down, but the
Yeah.
pot is often a sign of the womb as well, like the uterus. Like it's an interesting thing. I don't know what the significance is, but
Yeah, but I just thought to be like a flag, which is like a Ketu thing, something,
yeah,
and
definitely some kind of
so
flag. Very interesting. Yeah, I don't know this. What
yeah,
kind of leaves are those again? Do you know what kind of leaves those? It's just
it's like I don't know whether it's a mango leaves or is it a, I don't know. I'm not sure. Maybe mango leaf. I don't know.
I
Need to
don't know
need to
enough
see.
about this, so I won't say, but it's a
Yeah,
fascinating symbol. Yeah.
I don't know.
So.
I'm also not sure. Yeah,
Mhm.
but I remember what they do is they'll make some sugar candies that I know very well, and then they will put it. So type of sugar candies like in a mala form. The white
A
sugar
lot
candy
of
is a
these
mala
things
form.
that we just think are like, like village things, like we have that in
Yeah,
every country. Like a lot of these things we think is a small town thing or a village thing, they usually have come out of some deeper significance,
correct.
for sure. And so they get preserved in some way and people just do it as a routine. Like it becomes a
Yeah,
ritual, the meaning can get lost. It'd be very interesting to know what the meaning
yeah.
of that. Yeah.
But you see, leaves, Mercury, sugar candies, Shukra, the flowers, Shukra, the cloth, again, that's of something like Shukra. You see those?
And it's a red claw. It's just a fascinating, it's like an
Yeah,
upside down pot really catches my attention. That's
yeah.
fascinating. Yeah.
Anyways, finally, yeah, that was all I have for Revati. It's a wealthy star. Deity is Pushan. Understand its story, find its significance. Mercury and Jupiter qualities. Mercury, Jupiter, Ketu plays a role. We saw a lot of mathematicians' charts everywhere coming there. 12th house themes, Indian butter tree, also called as Mahua, alcoholic thing, enjoyment thing, festivals thing. So it's a Mridu Nakshatra, it's an happy Nakshatra, but also very intelligent. It has got powers of Jupiter and Mercury. Um, I think that's all I have for this. And yeah, so
Yeah, that was
good.
great, Aditya. I think very interesting points and all that.
Yeah.
But yeah, go
And
ahead.
finally, this is what my calculation is still going on. We'll see how much Revati is. We have talked about till now 49 hours, almost 50 hours. And now it's almost 3 hours. So now it's almost 52 hours. So counting is still on. So
Right.
maintaining that count.
Great. We'll see. Yeah.
Yes.
So so I'll start actually. Well, if anyone has got to this point, I'm sure you're very patient and all that. But this is a very rare point where I feel like actually much should not be spoken about at the Revati Nakshatra. To be frank, it's one of those places where you feel like you need to contemplate more, you need to sit in silence more, then you can actually learn more about Revati Nakshatra and so forth. But I don't feel like talking much also, to be frank. But I'll just do justice, if you are here at this point. But one thing, a couple of points, of course, great points by everyone actually. Even Kapilji also mentioned very interesting points. But I'll just start over the omens, right? So interesting thing was that we started by talking about death actually in the beginning. We started to talk about death. And if you observed, Kapilji was smoking a cigar also. So there was smoke there, right? So smoke is also Ketu Rahu influence. So that moksha thing is already there. And there was a dog that showed up also in between. A karma dog is directly a karma Shiva kind of thing. You can see that also directly. Of course, you can see interesting thing was to see how Dr. Pai mentioned finally the word many times. So like he literally said finally. So this is a final point, right? So final nakshatra kind of theme is definitely going to play out. And what UG mentioned about the Gangavata Shiva actually, right? The Shiva in which his hands is actually the final thing. I mean, that's a huge topic. And that is a very rare thing also. So that's usually, so there are 108 Karanas of Shiva that is displayed in the Chidambaram temple, in which the final
That's
thing,
exactly it. The
yeah,
108. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly that. So in that, the final thing is actually the statue which UG showed, and then of course,
Moksha Khanda.
yeah, the moksha aspect. So the moksha karna, actually the final thing, the 108th pose, the finality of pose is that. So in fact, many times it's interesting. You find the same statue close to a goddess shrine also sometimes. So a very powerful goddess shrine will have a Shiva in this particular form close by. So that's the other aspect also. And of course, that statue itself, you look at Now, there are yogis who try to hold those poses. That is also there. That's another category of things that is happening there.
I'll show the image again. If
Yeah.
I can't really see what you guys are seeing.
So you can see that he's having Damaru in his hand, and he's holding himself with his left hand completely on the bottom. And of course, that is the other aspect. If you stand upside down, so there are many aspects here. One of the aspects
His
of Shiva
feet are higher than his head.
Exactly, yeah. His feet is higher on the head. His head is below. He's staring at you. He's blessing you also at the same time. And his hand is also on the Apasmara Purusha also, right? That's also another aspect. Now, see, if you think like that, right? So, and of course, he has Damru in his hand and other normal fire thing in the hand and all that. That is also there. Now, there are people who do things like that, right? Usually, dancers, circus people, yoga people. So, you'll find people who are yoga teachers and all that. That kind of thing can be a very strong theme there. In fact, you'll find many times these natives will be ending up in ashrams at some point in time. I won't say end up in ashram per se, but they might visit ashrams, attend meditation retreats, things for an isolation kind of thing can be very strong. Now, the hand aspect is most interesting in my view. That is pointing to many aspects. Of course, one interpretation is quite easily at the final stage of, you go through all this 108 karna, finally the God has to pull you up. That's the final aspect actually. So in fact, they say in the Shaivite path, you start off with Ganesha, then you go towards Kartikeya, then there is a final aspect in which Shiva himself pulls you up through the Sahasrara Chakra actually. So Kartikeya will help you until the 6th point of Ajna Chakra. Then to get to the Sahasrara Chakra, Shiva himself has to pull you up. There's a hidden aspect there. Of course, there's the other aspect in which you are upside down also. So in which that is a very interesting point. It points to the existence of other lokas also. So Shiva's feet is at higher worlds. It could be that there are higher lokas out there also, which could be Devalok and all the Tapalok and all that. That kind of thing could be easily be the case also. That's the other aspect that I want to highlight with the thing. And of course, not only did in the Oman wise, not only did Kapilji's dog show up, Yuji's cat also showed up in between. So you can see this Rahu Ketu kind of theme playing out there. So and of course, a very interesting thing also I wanted to make a point was how even Dr. Pai said he had to leave for a dinner. He had to leave for a social function. So many times these kind of karma with social functions can also play out for these natives. Or they might find they're experiencing a loss or they're having to deal with the social function which they do not like or something. That kind of thing might happen. So normally, of course, we know Pisces people like to be in their own shell and all that, but they'll be pulled out by circumstances to attend social function and all that. Usually it can be like, for instance, natives who like to do charity. A lot of charity people you will find in Pisces and all that, right? So people are in NGOs, people are in charitable foundations, organizations, all that. So of course, but then they have to go to the rich people and host them for dinners and all that kind of thing. They have to actually have a social thing going on. Now, within that also, the other interesting moment was that how Yuji actually completed her presentation of sorts for the talk. So because in that talk, in the conference talk, she did not have time, but the final slide, which was kind of pending, was actually something which she completed today. So that's a very interesting karma of, like, you can say people who are native in Revati are more likely to actually complete that karma from a past lifetime. So, so though for Yuji, it was just like a week ago she was doing the conference or whatnot, but then you could see this particular aspect. So many times 12th houses of the natural zodiac is connected with past life. So many times you can see a completion aspect playing out karmically with planets in, Revati and Pisces and so forth, actually. And then, of course, Aditya, a very interesting aspect also was today Aditya actually showed research aspects. Now, rarely do we do that actually, but this time you actually came with a flood, right? A lot of charts and all that kind of thing. So that's a typical world for a Revati Nakshatra native.
We both showed what we meditate on.
Exactly that. So you can
we
see
showed charts of what we're absorbed in.
Yeah, exactly that. So you can
mathematician buddy down here.
Yeah, exactly that. So you can see that exact aspect about sharing research. They're very keen on research. They're very keen on mathematical thinking, things that they like, things that they sleep with, things that they think about when they're sleeping, all that, right? So that kind of thing, you can see this karma of research is very strong. And it's very interesting point. You find the people who are most intelligent people end up in research labs or very highly educational institutions or one of the wealthiest institutions out there actually. And usually you'll find the most sattvic people. Now, in many ways, there's a hidden, so this idea of research, people who like to do research, who have to do research, who have research karma, who might end up being great researchers, that karma of bringing ideas from a different world is very strong for them. That can actually play out in many ways, actually. This abstract thinking, and of course, that kind of thing. Now, Einstein's thought about time itself was interesting. The way he thought about time was that if you were to travel at the speed of light, what would be the effect of time you would have? And he said that, time is going to change. The perception of time is going to change is what he actually said, actually. And of course, that's a very interesting thing. And here is where the biggest aspect, in my opinion, astrologically, Shani's birth nakshatra being Revati is playing out. So I was thinking, the one EVG was mentioning about how Shani's desire was that everyone should tremble in my presence or whatnot, right? So though it is true, normally we would actually think about Shani in terms of trembling, fear, and all that. Someone with whose presence you might tremble. But is it possible that another interpretation could exist? Is it possible that Shani is pointing to, what, you are going to experience samadhi no matter what, you have to finally do seva of the world kind of thing in that particular aspect? Is it possible?
Well, he's also Shanta Karaka, the one that gives peace. His bija, bija akshara is Sham. Which is peace. Shanti is like, it's all this. So it is interesting that we're trembling in the face of what? Maybe yes, exactly. It's very, it's fascinating because I had written in there to you guys, he's born on they make it specific. Krishna Paksh. Revati moon.
So Krishna Paksh is only, so it is only possible, Krishna Paksh Revati is only possible when sun is in Aries all the way to sun being in Leo or something, right? That's the other aspect also. So that's also a hidden thing there.
Interesting.
So in my opinion, that is also holding a big clue there, actually. So Shani is also the collective, the world around and so forth. The Shukla world around, after all, is Shani after all. And then you put him, he is born there in the final nakshatra. So actually you can see what Shani's intention is actually. Shani is about, okay, you want to clear out this karma so that your next life is cleared up and all that. Make sure your past life karmas are completely cleared up and all that. So in general, Revati nakshatra native, just because of that, Shani's influence will have a hard time. That is one thing I can just say. And again, one subtle point I also want to raise is that EVG once mentioned, I think once about how there can be a subtle nakshatra exchange if that Mercury is in a Shani nakshatra also.
Sukshma Parivartana is, so the Dasha Patis are in an exchange.
So
actually powerful.
So Shani is a planet is nakshatra. That planet is in Revati nakshatra. There is a possibility that exchange which EVG mentioned, the Sukshma Parivartana can actually happen. That's a very subtle topic because the planet is in Shani's birth nakshatra. So that's also one influence I want to say. And Shani is also very interesting because Shani can be considered to be a moksha karka also. In fact, a lot of yogis have that. Shani itself is born in Revati nakshatra. Makes you think about that. You think about Ketu.
It's common with the saints, like I was saying at the conference before. I had so many charts. Saints, one of their biggest influence, real saints. Shani, somehow. You have to know how to read it, but it's going to end up being Shani visitor again. About Revati Jatam, born in.
Right. So that's a very interesting point to think about. So usually because of that, you can say easily these nakshatra natives, and it was very fascinating again, because usually these natives will have a natural tendency to escape. They will have the natural tendency to escape into the worlds. Now, it was interesting, you think about smoke, right? So normally you'll see, of course, if you're in the West and all that, or even in North India and whatnot, especially in the Himalayas and all that, very naturally you might be drawn towards smoking weed, drugs, alcohol. Quite easily you can escape towards that. That's a natural, easy way to escape and the lower way to escape actually. But of course, higher ways to escape is eventually samadhi and all that. That kind of thing can happen. Yogic samadhi, yogi practices, deeper meditation, sadhana and all that can be the easy way to escape. But what is fascinating is that immediately after Revati is also the Ashwini nakshatra, which is pointing to a new birth of sorts. So the final step of liberation is even to let go of all the gunas completely. So even sattva guna, sattva guna is still a guna, and Ishwar himself is nirguna actually. He's beyond all the gunas. So the final step in which you have to let go of whatever you thought you knew, whatever you were holding back to, whatever you thought as being good is also playing out here actually. Whatever you thought as good, whatever you thought as bad has to be let go completely in Revati, and they'll find themselves in those situations actually, where they are having to clear out karmas, where they are having to face this kind of aspect of reality. They have to move forward no matter what. And that's the other aspect. These Revati nakshatra natives will have a natural tendency to get stuck in the past, stuck in a world that should not be, that they should not be in there. So many times you'll find these nakshatra natives might actually lose time because they spend their time in a fantasy world. So that guy is going to come back to me. This girl is going to come back to me, or I'm going to be in this particular dream world. And when you tell that to them, they'll say, yeah, you called me out on that, that kind of thing, because they actually spend years losing years. Okay, this guy is going to come back to me, this girl is going to come back to me, kind of thing. Actually, that's a real problem here with Revati Nakshatra Natus, because they spend time in that particular loka. Now, this is the other aspect also. And of course, we talked about teeth and all that. So of course, it's a very famous thing that if you dream about all the teeth falling from your mouth, you're going to die. That's one of those Revati Nakshatra theme. Actually, it's a very common theme. But you have to dream about all the teeth falling, not just one teeth and all that. And there's very interesting things also, like how tooth fairy concept, how you get the first tooth, you actually put it under your pillow, and then you get money out of nowhere, right? That's a pure Revati kind of thing going on also. The other interesting moment to think about also, one technique here is because Venus influence is very strong here. So Venus is getting exalted here after all. And the technique is to look at where the Venus nakshatras are falling in actually. So Venus nakshatra is second house from Revati in Aries sign and so forth. And that Bharani nakshatra is falling there. So those are very interesting thing which once I came across, where a doctor was saying, a doctor was about to have food. At that point, he's interrupted by someone. Okay, this person is coming, he's about to eat his food. Someone comes and interrupts him. Now he's like, okay, this is not a good omen, but he goes and finds out what is happening. That person is already dead by the time he reaches there and all that. So this omen of having food being interrupted, pointing to death, or Bharani Nakshatra being activated is one theme you can actually see from that actually. Now, Dr. Pai mentioned about Moringa and Sambar and all that. So usually these Nakshatra natives will be great at having food. Of course, we are talking on a typical Thanksgiving day when you'll be filled with food and having a lot of food and all that. So I mean, usually there is no lack of food in their life. They'll have enough wealth, they'll have enough food around. And of course, that's a challenge also. You have to watch out for weight gain and all that quite easy. Venus is exalted here. It's a Jupiter sign. Very easily Jupiter sign rule natives, Kapha planet and all that. So easily fat gain and all that can easily happen. That can be a real thing because they are eating a lot. That can be an actual thing they have to look into also. Now, the other aspect here, but here because Venus is exalted, there are these aspects of flowers. You can actually eat flowers. I didn't even know that. You can actually have flower-based diet and so forth. In fact, the flower aspect was very interesting. There's a huge, wide world about flowers. You have the Bach flower remedies, for instance. There are many flowers that if you bloom, it's considered to be a big blessing. There are many stories in China and all that, when blooming of a particular flower is supposed to symbolize a big blessing in that particular land and kingdom and all that. So that kind of thing is huge, actually. There's a huge, huge world of flowers. In fact, in that case, just because of that, growing up certain challenging flowers in general. So for instance, flowers that bloom in the nighttime. No one is going to look at the flower, jasmine and all that, but that flower, having that flower in your home itself is considered to be a big blessing, actually. So of course, the Hindus take care of Tulsi plant. Tulsi flowers, if you look at it, it's a very unique shape. That's a very interesting thing to think about. But but that flower karma is something you will see a lot, and of course that means that they'll be very familiar with perfumes. They'll have the good things in their life. They'll be very connected with all these fashion industry. A lot of models you'll find with Revati. In fact, one easy way to identify Revati Nakshatra natives that if you look at their face, you'll see they have that fish-like appearance. So the cheekbones are raised for most of the models, man or woman. You'll see the cheekbones are pronounced very raised and all that, and you look like you're looking at the face of fish of sorts become very clear actually when you actually look at them. That kind of thing is very direct also. That's one more thing you begin to see. Now, of course, fish is the actual remedy here also. We are talking about Meena Rashi and so forth. So I recollect one instance where a client had a lot of planets here in Revati. I advised her to actually grow an aquarium. Then all hell broke loose, right? So that kind of thing. So just having an aquarium in the home can actually symbolize Pisces karma. So aquarium can be good or can be for bad also. But it is so taking care of fish or having a fish element in your life, and of course in Feng Shui and all that, you have complete direction for the aquarium in your home. But in my opinion, taking care of fish is also a very powerful remedy here. Ketu is also Maltsya Avatara actually. That's also one more thing I want to highlight. The other thing with fish, I want to say it's a very interesting subtle point. This idea, now there is a yogi whose name is linked with the fish, and that yogi's name is Malsyendranath. So Malsyendranath is famous. You could say that he is famously linked with multiple yogini sadhana and all that actually. He was the one who actually had the 64 yoginis and so forth. He supposedly created the yogini sadhana from Kamakya and all that. That's the legend. That's the story there actually. And all these yoginis, karma yoginis and all that can happen. Now, Malsyendranath in yoga, you have this Malsyasana actually, so in which you literally twist your head, you look literally upside down pose actually, in which your head is actually going upside down. That's a pure Malsyendranath kind of energy, in my opinion. And that's a very interesting thing because in In India, of course, you have the Kamakya temple, which is usually linked with Barney and all that. But there is a strong Venus influence there in Kamakya. Kamakya is a hardcore tantric place. So Revati is also very strongly tantric energies and so forth. But specifically, I would also like to add, could be more goddess tantra or yogini kind of tantra can actually play out more. Like Tara Tantra, as UG mentioned.
And Tara, yeah, where you worship her feet. I mean, this is, yes, exactly.
Exactly that. That's one aspect. And this one idea also I want to highlight was that with fish and with Malsya, the Dakshinavati Shankh is something which Dr. Pai mentioned. But it is ideally that Dakshinavati Shankh is pointing to the picture or a statue of a goddess or so forth. So it makes it more ideal. The energy will go towards the goddess energy, and the energy coming from the statue or that picture can actually come out towards you also. The pointy part of the Shankh should be pointing towards the goddess. Now, usually they recommend the Dakshinavati Shankh to keep it in the right side of the altar. They recommend an even number of Shankh actually, so 2 or 4 or something like that, to keep it on the right side. That is because feminine numbers are even numbers actually. That's something they recommend. They actually consider that right side Shankh itself as a goddess. So that makes you think. So putting water in it, keeping it overnight, drinking that water in next day and all that is very powerful practice actually. That's something I can say. Now, the other aspect is this foot aspect with Rohini. So Rohini is having this, they'll have a lot of shoes. So that'll be a default thing. Just like Swati and all that, they'll have a lot of shoes actually because of exalted Venus, a lot of fashion thing and all that. But the feet aspect is very interesting. There is a stage in yoga eventually where you have to put your head at the feet of the deity. That's the only option. Yeah, that's the final thing and that piece. So usually you'll find, depending upon the planet there, they will not do it or they might do it a lot. So like if you have malefic there, they might not be willing to bow their head in front of a deity and all that. But if you have benefic there, they might be getting blessings because they are doing the same. So that kind of thing can actually play out. So the head at the feet of a deity is a very powerful idea. I also want to highlight one more idea about this Pashupatinath temple also. Pashupatinath temple is having an interesting thing with the history being, they found a cow would come and put its milk down upon a Shivlinga actually. So then that eventually became a Pashupatinath temple and so forth is what they say. But Pashupatinath temple is a very powerful place to visit in Nepal and all that. I cannot recommend that enough. Now, if at all you go there, it's a very powerful place. They still have Adi Shankaracharya's acharyas still being maintained. People from Kerala all the way go to that temple and all that. The head priest is always from one of these Kerala thing, if I'm not mistaken. Could be Karnataka or something. One of those mud coming from the Konkan region actually. That kind of thing I want to say. Usually that's one of those traditional things which
are you talking about Kedarnath or Pashupatinath?
Pashupatinath is also having a thing going on like that actually.
Oh, like that.
So yeah,
okay.
something like that is actually going on.
Because Kedarnath they do that, correct?
Yeah, Kedarnath is Kerala thing. You're right.
Kerala
Kedarnath
thing,
is
yeah.
actually Kerala, but I think Pashupatinath is also having a system, right? It's more from Karnataka, if I'm not mistaken. One of these mutts from Karnataka actually. But of course, the person who has to go there has to study from all the mutts and all that kind of thing. All the Vedas and all that should be clear. But I want to highlight that because now Venus is interesting. This is a very subtle point also because Venus, the avatar of Vishnu linked with Venus is actually Parshuram. If you think about Parshuram history, that itself is a big story there actually. Because Parshuram, fascinatingly, one of the stories is that Parshuram was angry at the sun and he was about to curse the sun or something. So sun himself came down and blessed Parshuram with an umbrella and sandals actually. So these natives might have karma, the umbrella, and with sandals. That's one thing I just want to add actually. But Parshuram's story is more interesting because he actually he's supposed to have created land he's supposed to have obtained land in charity from Varuna himself and created the entire Konkan coast, which includes Kerala also. So you can see that Venus energy is very strong in the land that is created by Parshuram, or the Parshuram being the origin point of this land. And you find that actually in Kerala and all that, you find a lot of goddess energy is very strong. In fact, a lot of temples are very strong. Now in Kerala, what is interesting, you see that there is an actual thing called as Revati Pattatanam. So in which when sun is in Pisces and moon is in Revati Nakshatra, a very great scholar is honored by the king in Calicut, my city actually. So they call it Revati Pattatanam, in which they basically put a silk cloth on top of the scholar. So of course the scholars compete among themselves, and finally the wisest one is actually chosen and given this thing. So there is a hidden element of knowledge and wealth of wisdom here actually. In fact, in my opinion,
Rabindranath Tagore was a Revati Lagna.
Exactly. So in my opinion, Revati is also one of the nakshatras which is blessed by Saraswati actually. So Venus is exalted here. It's a Mercury ruled nakshatra, Jupiter sign also. So there is a blessing of Saraswati.
That's why I opened with Saraswati, actually.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
didn't say anything because it's
Yeah.
too long of a topic,
Yeah.
but it's actually, there is actually knowledge on that in some
Yeah.
of the classes.
Yeah, so that is a very direct point.
Veda Suktam is really good for people to listen to. The Meena Rashi in general.
Yeah.
There's a link with Saraswati, but I have a feeling with Revati, yes.
Yeah,
exactly.
so of course, Swati Nakshatra, in my opinion, Shravana, Pushya, and Revati should be blessed by Saraswati, in my opinion. I think that will be a very straightforward thing. But that is a very subtle point. And of course, that means that they might have karma teaching, they might have karma with becoming teachers, music teachers, arts teachers, all that can come. The other here I want to highlight is also this idea about contemplative knowledge which you have to unite with actually. You know, the abstract thinking, you're literally entering into different worlds and so forth. Now, interestingly, you will find Revati Nakshatra natives will have dream world karma. So either they appear in other people's dreams and they'll have literally give wisdom or share knowledge and all that in other people's dreams. So this, they might not be aware about that, but this dream world karma or other loka karma could be strong for these natives. That's one thing I'll just add actually.
I'm
and of
so
course,
glad you're saying this because that's a huge part of Revati that none of us even mentioned.
Yeah.
It's dreams.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's a huge point. That's a huge point because of course.
The 12th house, correct?
Exactly.
Dreams.
Yeah. Exactly.
Revati, he's right. Sandeepji's right. I've seen this.
Yeah.
They have very significant dreams.
Yeah, exactly correct. So could be that, you know, what happens is that these natives are very naturally gifted in channeling. You'll find a lot of channeling gifts here. They can channel knowledge from other world, other lokas. They can communicate with gods and goddesses. For them, it's like, yeah, I just talked to goddess Kali came yesterday and told me this thing. That's an everyday thing for them. You know, that kind of thing could be a normal thing for a Revati Nakshatra native in general. And now, of course, I want to highlight about now, if you think about Parshuram himself, he was a very violent person. He literally came down and actually destroyed the entire Kshatriya race, cleansed the earth of Kshatriya race. So there is a hidden tendency for violence here. So that's one thing I will say. Though there is wisdom here, there will be.
Well, it's Shukracharya. We should be clear on that, though. It might be Shukracharya as opposed to like action. But it's because Shukra is Ucha there. Like I said, the Unabomber and these guys are all Ucha Shukra guys.
So no, that's a very important point also. Now, I'm glad Yuji mentioned Shukracharya. Now, see, the whole music industry or music in general is actually linked with Venus. In general, you can say that. Now, you can see that the music you listen to will determine the state of violence level that you're going to express or so forth. Now, usually a pure remedy from Revati Nakshatra in that regard, or in general for any native, is to pay attention to the music that you're listening to. Is the music inspiring violence? Is that music helping you lift up? Is the music actually, are you listening to all this emo music all day long? You know, are you depressed because of the music you listen to, for instance? Or are you listening to classical music or pure elevate music that elevates you and you feel there is a subtle level to it and all that? So that's the other aspect also. In fact, the music you listen to is going to have a direct impact upon the subconscious mind in many powerful ways. And that's something I would encourage people to pay attention to. Of course, you listen to violent music, eventually you might become violent. You watch a lot of violent movies, of course, you might have problems in your life. So many times I'll ask clients, okay, what kind of movies are you watching right now? They'll say, I'm watching all this murder mystery and all that. I'm like, okay, that explains all the problems you're having in your life right now.
Sandeep, do you see like what video games as well? Like
exactly, 100%. Of course,
games?
100%.
I was just thinking about that as you were talking.
Now, that's a very important point.
With escapism too.
Escapism, of course, also the opposite.
Fantasy.
Exactly. Fantasy realm and all that. So you are in a video game, you're shooting everyone, you're playing Call of Duty, Grand Theft Auto, right? I mean, it's a big industry. GTA is like a big deal, actually. Like GTA games, like, you know, GTA games, you go out, like you become a gangster, you go loot out any car and all that. You know, you beat people up with a baseball bat and you drive away with your car. You can even take away, steal like a helicopter and all that. That kind of thing you can do in GTA games.
Well, if you're absorbed in it, it is a form of meditation, technically. People think meditation is only sitting down and doing this super spiritual technique. No, we're meditating all day.
Exactly correct. But see, here's the problem. What I tell people is that you started playing GTA out of nowhere, but then, you know, your life goes to hell, then you have to consider what you're absorbed in actually. So that's a very important point actually. Are you absorbed in something that is helping you, or are you absorbed in something that is bringing you down? That's a big aspect. So that's a very important point. So Revati Nakshatra will have karma with parallel worlds because of that. This can be game world, this can be fantasy world, you know, this can actually be this idea of like a world where they are important character, so for instance, anime is a big thing with Revati and Chitra. Actually, you'll find they'll be drawn towards the anime world in one way or the other. Of course, you can have fun and all that, as long as it's happening in fun level and all that, not a problem. But if you're escaping to it, your life is going down, then you have to think about it actually. So that's one important aspect in my opinion. The other aspect I want to highlight, which Evji mentioned, is this Nad Yoga aspect actually. So Nad Yoga is a very powerful technique. You contemplate upon a Nad, you contemplate upon a mantras, and eventually they say there are traditions where the original Nad, the original frequency from a guru is still being maintained, and they contemplate upon that frequency sound actually. That's a very powerful thing. That's a very huge topic, and I would encourage that. That's a very powerful thing. Eventually, there is also this idea of like the point where you actually, eventually when you're meditating upon a deity, the idea is that there is an aspect when the completion of that path, completion of that meditation technique happens, when that goddess energy is completely absorbed within you. So what many yogis would do is that they would go to temples and so forth. They would meditate upon the deity. They would sit upon in front of the deity, meditate upon the deity. They chant mantras and whatnot, literally in temples and so forth. Eventually, they'll get to a point where that energy, that Shakti of the deity is completely absorbed within them. And then they would move to the next temple in the circuit and so forth. So correspondingly, you have all these 108 temples, 54 temples and all that temple circuits in India actually. So Ashtaganapati, for instance, each Ganesha you would go to a temple, you meditate, you would allow that union to happen with that particular deity, then you would go to a next temple. So each chakra is getting purified and so forth along the way.
Interesting thing, just pause 1 minute because this is profound actually. Literally, we were talking about like guru with jnanam, right?
Yeah.
With the principle of jnanam, the continuation of dharana.
Yeah.
And that guru is ucha, natural fourth house,
Yeah.
right? Manas.
Yes.
At the house of the psychology, you could say. Well, Shukra also gets Digbal there.
Yes, correct.
It's fascinating because there's a very powerful truth that you're highlighting, that whatever you have jnanam on, you're going to have samadhi, you're going to have absorption, you're going to have union with that.
Yes.
Actually, so if you do these, you do literally attain a oneness or union.
Yes.
With that, that's a whole thing in Vibhuti Pada. That's what he's highlighting. Whatever you get samyama with,
yes,
samyama, whenever that happens, which is the three, the culmination of the three, you become. Yes.
Exactly correct. So that's
really powerful, actually. If people really want to meditate on this.
Yeah, it's an exact thing. But like I said, there was an actual field where that was displayed. Temples used to be like that. All the kshetras and all that were actually kshetras. Actually, it's not temple, not mandir. Actually, it's kshetra. It's a field which you are trying to go there and you are trying to absorb that energy. And more importantly, eventually you literally unite with that energy. That energy becomes part of you, and then you literally move on to the next temple and whatnot. That's a very powerful concept, actually. Temples. So let me put it this way: there are, of course, a normal person would go to a temple, make prayer, and leave. Great, they got darshan. Great. But a yogi would approach a temple differently. This is exactly how a yogi is going to approach it. But more importantly, they will know that kind of thing. They'll know that the intelligence in a temple is a very powerful field. They begin to recognize that it's a living field you are interacting with. Of course, like deity is there and all that. That kind of thing is also there. But more importantly, you are connecting with that particular aspect in a deeper fashion. Actually, that's something I wanted to highlight. Actually, this union aspect, which Yuji mentioned in many powerful ways, you can actually take it in a practical level in many powerful ways. You can literally become the character in the video game, or you can actually become become unite with one of these gods or goddesses also in many powerful ways. And that can mean many aspects actually. But eventually you'll get to a point where all the characters are united with, all the devatas are united with, and then you have to go beyond that also in the end. That's a bigger point. So that Gangavata Shiva and all that becomes very important in that particular aspect, in which that final step of liberation, in which you have to let go of completely what you thought you knew, what is like complete sattvic and all that. The Revati is exactly that point. Now what happens after that? Ashwin Nakshatra, right? Then you're reborn. Then you get into the world again. Now you're looking at it with new eyes, actually. The sense of time is completely lost. The sense of identity is completely lost. And that's an actual karma for these natives. So these natives have to let go of their past identity. They have to learn to move ahead in this lifetime. That's an actual thing for these natives also. And a couple of final points. Of course, tourism is a big deal here. Aditya mentioned about how the guy had, houseboat and all that. So boat karma can happen. Cruises and all that. You tend to have good time in cruises. You'll go to Caribbean, beachside places and all that. That's a typical thing. That's a typical karma there. Shepherd energy is very interesting because I was thinking there are a couple of schools names which name is beginning Shepherd, like Good Shepherd schools and all that is there in Kolkata and all that. So you might have karma with those kind of schools and all that. That kind of thing can happen. The music aspect is of course there. So the rhythm which you connect with is very interesting. I also want to highlight resorts and spas and relaxing places also. You know, all these. So you have all these natural rejuvenating hot springs and all that. So you might find you might get more rejuvenated there in those kind of places and all that. Now there is a hidden healing in the ocean. That's something I can say. Satabhisha Nakshatra existence itself is proving that kind of thing exists. Pisces, where Venus is getting exalted, is also proving that particular thing. So when you go to the ocean for 100 days or whatnot, you'll find yourself healing actually. A lot of powerful diseases can be changed, overcome just because you're surfing out in the ocean. There are many stories like that. So in fact, people talk about, there's this guy who wrote this book, Flow, actually. His book name is Flow. He was doing research on flow state actually. And he had all his health issues and all that. He just surfed for like 6 months and all his health issues disappeared. He started to get more into flow state more often. So this connecting with the ocean, connecting with an entity that is superior to you, which is like an ocean, and you're surfing that. Learning to surf is a very powerful thing also. So that kind of karma can actually play out for these natives. The ocean can be a great mother who can teach you a lot more things actually, more and more heal you in the process also. That's the other aspect that can play out. So an actual remedy for Revati Nakshatra natives is to actually go to the ocean and spend time there and all that. Usually you'll find that they are naturally going towards that. They wander home close to the ocean. They end up there. They have a regular vacation thing going on. Every year they end up going to Florida, whatnot, Cancun or whatnot. That kind of thing will actually happen for these natives actually, because that ocean thing is something that is subconsciously pulling them in many powerful ways. And the ocean is also linked with goddess energy very strongly actually. You know, so in fact, omens of, so because I'm Kerala, I'm along the coast, omens of fishermen is actually an omen of goddess actually. You know, Venus kind of thing is exalted, Pisces, right? That kind of thing actually. So that is also one more thing. There is a lot more to say about elephants also. Elephants, I'll just say one quick thing. Just like how they have Kamadhenu as being the cow, which is containing all the gods in the within the Kamadhenu's body parts, even the elephant Airavat is also supposed to be like that. So they say the head of the Airavat is having the Vishnu, Brahma sitting on the trunk is actually having Vishnu, Brahma is there, Agni is here and all that. That kind of thing exists even for Airavat also. So Airavat is also very powerful kind of elephant like that. So though we tend to acknowledge Airavat just like as a Vahana for Indra, what makes you think. So if there are all the gods hidden in Airavat, what exactly is going on there? More importantly, a bigger aspect is also Ganesha worship is very powerful here, again, because of elephant-headed god being Ganesha and all that. So Ganesha is a very powerful, think about that actually. You begin with Ketu, which is Ashwini Nakshatra. You end up in Mercury's Revati Nakshatra, which the animal being elephant. What's going on there? So is Ganesha capable of helping out in many powerful ways? And I think, of course, Ganesha also was the god whose story is literally linked with his head being cut off.
Oh,
so that,
yes.
exactly that. So the head being cut off kind of energy can be very strong. So literally at the Revati point, you have to get your head cut off. That's an actual thing that will happen. But what is surprising is that you might see
not really head the cutoff, but
of course your identity kind of thing and all that, you
Guys,
know.
think about it. Contemplate like Mahavidya Chinnamasta, who
Yeah.
everyone's the misuse of that energy in black magic. I mean, I don't even want to speak it because people are going to take it wrong. But I'm talking about approaching her out of love. Okay, guys, the hidden guest in the room as we're speaking with Revati is love.
Yeah.
Love is the number one uniting force of all things. If you love something, you are more likely to become, think about that, the force of that, become one with her, to forget yourself in it, absorption. But I'm talking about this out of love, not out of magic and all these like jadu, forget it. I don't, as I speak about it, I even say it to her feet. I want nothing from her, nothing. So in that spirit, let me say, like Chinnamasta's form, she has the, she's beheaded, she's holding her own head, and she's drinking her own blood. And on top of Kama and Rati. Okay, and they're making love. So most people look at this and they're like, oh, it's tantric image, blah, blah, blah. It's very powerful. Don't dismiss it, because all forms of samadhi require you to become headless. They require you to lose the limited intellect. And then she's drinking the wine of her own blood. From their union, she's dancing on their union. The little union of the body becomes nothing, right? I mean, it's a very powerful image. But I was thinking about that because in classical Mahavidya, like they'll say, oh, that she's the one that handles Rahu.
Yeah.
She's the one that handles him. And people mistake that, oh, Rahu is Chinnamasta. I'll hear this stuff, but she's the one that handles his big head. So the two stories you hear of getting beheaded, they were both overly brave and audacious.
Yeah.
Rahu.
Right.
Rahu was not the liar, by the way. Vishnu was actually deceiving. Okay.
Right.
Guys are not getting the story correct. It was the Devas who were lying, actually. And Rahu, he just discovered it. That's what he discovered it and then did the same. He just disguised himself. He saw Vishnu. So Rahu's not a liar. I think there's a misconception of the story. Okay. He's audacious, brave. There's a bravery in that. Same thing with Ganapati, the story. He confronts Shiva like, you can't pass, you know. For him, he's an audacious quality, right? It's just interesting to contemplate that because there's something profound.
I can say a couple more slightly points. Now let's get to Devata aspect, as you mentioned. So what is interesting is that all the gods whom we mentioned today, like Thanatos, for instance, Yamraj, for instance, Pushan, who's actually guarding the soul, they are all category of these gods. They are called as psychopoms. Psychopoms are the gods who are actually helping one soul to move from one world to the other world and all that. That particular karma can play out with the tourism, cruise ships, travel industry, air hostess karma, pilots and all that kind of thing can play out. The other aspect with the deity, of course, elephant, there is a aspect of Lakshmi who is Gajalakshmi, in which elephant is behind the showering gold coins and all that. So that's the time, that Lakshmi will give you a lot of wealth, guaranteed to happen, right? So because a lot of elephant is showering coins and all that, that kind of thing is good. Now, I mentioned about yoginis briefly. There is also something called as Apsara Sadhana, in which you literally do, mantras or apsaras and all that. You literally do Menaka, Urvashi and all that. But what is interesting is that if you read about accounts of it online, this guy literally says that apsaras are like 10 feet, 11 feet tall. Like normal human is 6 feet tall, at least 5 foot, 6 foot tall or whatnot. They're double your size. And literally you interact with beings above that. And what is fascinating is that if you look at James Cameron, who has plans in Pisces, his Avatar movie, right? So Avatar movie is literally having the 10-foot tall beings, actually blue beings also.
Oh, and it's all the escape is like they're going into this other world. That's so interesting.
Exactly. In fact, it's going to come out in December when Jupiter is going to be in Pisces and all that. So that's also a hidden thing, interesting thing to see, actually. And of course, James Cameron has a lot of plans in Pisces and so forth also, So that is an interesting aspect. So this karma, beings from other world who could be taller than you, that's an interesting way of looking at it also. And also now this will be the final set of points. Now the mantra associated with Revati is Sham as this mantra. That's the Bijakshar associated with Revati. That is usually part linked with the one petal, two petals of Agnya Chakra. One petal is Sham, actually. So that's actually interesting. Revati is literally linked with the third eye. So many times they can get in gifts of like looking into future, past, present. All the channeling gifts can come quite easily for these natives. Connecting with the higher lokas, literally being one with the world of gods and goddesses and all that can happen. Literally one with the world of demons, and also that can also happen depending upon the planets you have and the karma you have and all that. That aspect is there. Now the final set point, and of course the union aspect can also happen for good and for bad. So you become one with Christ. There are people who are stigmata, actually. Literally, blood comes, your hand is getting nailed out of nowhere and all that. That kind of thing can come. Of course, same thing can happen in people who become one with the gods and goddesses, actually. So there was one guy who, I think Yuji was showing, right? That guy, the Ambe Mata guy, right? The Prahlad Jani guy, that guy was literally wearing that clothes of a goddess and all that, literally. A male guy blessed by a goddess. He's becoming, so that's one aspect. So that particular aspect is interesting because, so he actually was blessed by the goddess, actually. And, when he's blessed by the goddess, he's actually able to, is the story, I think Yuji mentioned about this, him in this conference which we had. So Prahlad Jani is, this guy, he was actually, the story goes that he actually, does not have any food or water. There's a yogi who does not have any food for water for 75 years, but he was blessed by the goddess. The story goes that a goddess touched him when he was young, when he was meditating in a forest. After that, he does not have any food or water completely. And that is the fascinating part. You do that, you don't have to pay any bills for groceries. Great for that. But this guy actually did that. But what I want to highlight here is that he is actually there is in the other picture, in the black and white picture, you can see he's actually dressed like the goddess. That's the other aspect. So that's the subtle aspect there actually. So sometimes you might find people actually wearing the dresses like gods or goddesses and so forth. No, I can't. His chart is actually, he's not having any plans in Pisces, but Mars.
We don't know the Lagna. We actually don't know the Lagna, so it's not really fair that way. It could be in
Yeah. Yeah, that could be true. I think he does have Mars in Virgo aspecting Pisces, but as far as the Mercury nakshatras are concerned, we don't know whether the moon is in Jeshta or whether well, sun is in Ashlesha, so perhaps there is some Mercury energy there. So perhaps that is one clue there actually. But see, this is very interesting. This is literally, here is an example of a guy who literally did not eat actually for 75. This is an actual thing. NASA actually studied him and all that. So it makes you think, are these possibilities real? Is there something else that is out there? Do we actually have
another
to have
Ucha Mars, guys? Another Ucha Mangal in the Navamsha.
Yeah, exactly.
Another one. So
Yeah.
it's that importance of Mars for this kind of focus is incredible. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is one thing. Thank you, Yuji, for showing that. But now the final set of points is that if you look at the sounds linked with Revati Nakshatra, it is De, Do, Cha, and Chi. So they, for instance, is Deva, Devaganas and all that. Very easily you can say natives whose name is having De sound. You'll have karma, those things. Do sound, what are some words? Doka. So like Doka is meaning cheat, to be deceived. So of course they might get either subject to Doka and all that. Subject to being deceived can happen. For Revati. And of course they don't care. Revati Nakshatra in general won't care. If I lost money, karma gone, that kind of thing. How they will do actually. That's how they will approach also. Now Cha and Chi sound is interesting because Cha, of course, Cha sound is a very interesting kind of sound in terms of many powerful ways. Cha is having a hidden link with Shiva and all that. But Cha in Malayalam, my language, is also Chati means also deception actually. So there's a lost energy carrying with Cha sound and all that. And you have some mantra with the stronger Cha sound like Cham and all that is there. Like, Chandi, for instance, a very powerful goddess name, a very, very powerful Venus energy is there with Chandi and Chamundi and all that. So immediately that sound, you can see that and all that. Now, of course, and the final sound is Chi sound. Now, it's not, in my opinion, it's not an accident that Eugene mentioned about Chinnamasta here also. It has to be there. The Chi sound is interesting because, China is having Chi sound. Chi sound in the English name, at least though we pronounce it China, Cha sound is being there in China. So Chi sound is there actually in English thing. So you'll find a lot of karma, Chinese people and all that also. In fact, I was actually talking to a Chinese person who was interested in wines and all that recently. You can say pure Venus kind of karma playing out there actually. So that interesting to think about that. Now, if you think about China, immediately what do you think? 12th house, isolation, very strict. It's like, it's like Asura Loga there and all that, right? Quite easily you can see that. But something deeper to think about is that is there a hidden theme going on with the music you listen to? Pay attention to these sounds also, Achachi and
what is Tai Chi? There's Tai Chi, correct?
That's a good point. Yeah, I think Dr. Pai once mentioned about how Chi is also the flow of energy kind of thing, how Revati is also making you link with the flow of energy kind of thing and all that. So even the Tai Chi, Chuan kind of thing. Now Chu sound is all getting to this thing, the Ashwini Padas and so forth. But Chi sound, the energy flow and all that. So of course, in the whole Tai Chi, the whole Chi world, Qigong and all that, you start with Qigong, then you end up with Negong actually, as it's called. So, you do the internal alchemy when you begin with the external alchemy. So the internal alchemy, the same logic as yogi points and all that. So the same yogi kind of thing is going on there. At that point, finally, you become one with the world. There's no more separation, all that. So I think that's a very tough thing. Now, in my opinion, when you get enlightened in Revati, but you come down to the ground in Ashwini, who are having to deal with the world again. So that kind of thing is also happening. But now you are approaching the world in a different eyes actually. So Ashwini eyes is different, in which you have both sense of linear time and non-linear time, as actually Yuji mentioned actually. How time is having both components. So it could be that Revati is that final point where you actually get to Ashwini, where a lot of miracles and all that can happen. And of course, I can definitely say the final thing, Venus is exalted here. So whatever we mentioned, all these whatever points we mentioned today, all that kind of karma will also play out also in many ways. So whether it's isolation, mental asylums, or feeling like you're in an asylum kind of thing, or even or in simpler terms, finding yourself in different worlds when you're in different places also. That kind of thing can happen. And many times you'll find these natives are gifted actors and actresses, creators, excellent musicians. I was looking at Kanye West's chart actually. He actually has Ketu and exalted Revati. This guy's a billionaire. And of course he had all these controversies also, that kind of thing. So yeah, so this is what I have for Revati, and this is the end of that. Yuji or Aditya, do you have anything final to say on Revati?
I was gonna share my screen one more time.
Yeah, sure.
Just now, Togiji, if you have anything to say it, but I wanted to actually close.
Yeah, go ahead. No, go ahead.
With just Shukra in general.
Yeah.
And it's really funny, Sandeep Ji, that you're bringing up the conference because I didn't even relate this. I was like, oh, this actually relates to Revati, so I'll just use it. This was the tail end of the conference, was these two things.
Right.
And I didn't get to cover that, it was very interesting. I wouldn't have even connected that, and that I'm leaving for India.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah. Ashram.
See, you're traveling, you're traveling.
And I haven't been there for 12 years.
Yeah. So crossing across the ocean karma, right? So you just traveling from ocean karma.
And I'm going to meet Dr. Pai at Vancouver, and I'm traveling in another 6-7 days.
Yeah,
so
you're traveling.
That's really interesting. Yeah, I think it's just these when you pay attention to the things happening around and you don't try to control the environment.
Right, exactly.
Why are we so interested in controlling the environment? We can't. It's just cause ourselves a huge headache. It's really funny that we even think like controlling other people, trying to control their behavior. What can you do? It's like, let go.
But have you people seen Revati people having suffering from schizophrenia or mental problems, mental issues? I have seen
the 12th house and a Meena Rashi thing in general.
I have seen few of them. I have seen few of them with Revati.
It definitely, because you do get the institutions of mental health in the 12th house. And one thing, like if you look even at the names of Shukra, these I put in English because I didn't want anyone that doesn't follow Sanskrit to even just get hung up on that. I just it's just the translation of the names, but these are in his 108 names, just so you guys reading it. But I find that anything in Jyotish that deals with freedom, and it means you're breaking the chains of this so-called logical world. And also in the conference, I had quoted an Urdu poetry that's very beautiful. It's like a life of rationality. I need to find it. I need to actually post it for everyone because it's a beautiful way they're saying that life is beautified through devotion, actually, and a life without love and somewhat real love is shameful. A life of rationality becomes shameful without love. Like the whole, like undo the rationality. The gist of it is to undo the rationality. And so that can lead to, I actually had found that. I actually think that quote is very relevant to Revati. So I'm going to see if I have it on my desktop because I had found it, funny enough, after the conference. So Sandeep is dead on about these omens. It's interesting. I wasn't thinking that way, but I just want to see if I can find it real quick. I have it here. So I'm going to share that. Okay, so let me share that. It's just beautiful. It's in Urdu, guys. So for those of you who I don't, sometimes these translations you have to take with a.
So yeah, we are seeing you only. You have to restart your sharing your screen, Neerji, to see the.
Right, I'm gonna do that now. I'm gonna share both of these, and then so there's the quote. There's one of them. And I'll open the other one so you guys can actually read this. It's deep to contemplate the meaning of this. Let me do another share. Because honestly, in Revati, we're dealing with, and I would say even in Meena Rashi in general, okay, we're dealing with actually a desire to go deeper or to transcend something. And once again, just think of breaking out of prison in some way. So to break out of the confines, the most abundant energy human beings usually has some kind of desire, right? We have an abundance of emotional and desire-based energy. We also have an abundance of thought, but it's like an electricity. We have an abundance of this kind of internalized energy. So bhakti becomes very powerful because it's channeling that energy of desire. Whatever your desire is channeling that to one focus. So a lot of these older forms of poetry, like I might even translate this slightly different, but it's just not that my translation would be better, it's just that maybe slightly some, but this is good. It is good in the sense that we're trained that rationality is everything. And actually, Meena Rashi, I'm going to go back to the Shukra slide now. Rationality is the eclipse of joy. It actually can rob you of that joy, and you can try to be as logical as you'd like about it and say, oh, this isn't practical, this isn't this. But eventually the energy of desire within you is going to move towards an object of desire of some sort. And so it's better to harness that with a kind of devoted focus than to try to harness it with just dry thought, which is like dry bread. Who doesn't prefer butter on their bread over a dry piece of bread? We're always going to go for the ghee. We're going to go for the sugar, the ghee. It's like something in us wants to taste joy. And we know that that's the nature of existence somehow. It's almost like our perception of reality is so skewed by the birth that I don't know what we're trying to control. Once it goes back, I think Pisces goes into some kind of loss of control. And it hints to Togiji's point about what we're calling mental illness, all this. But actually, a lot of these people that people even consider somewhat losing touch with reality might have more touch with reality in some cases. You'll see those cases that there was a gentleman, another must in India. He was actually in a mental institution. They thought he was crazy because he would not put his feet on the ground. It caused interruptions in his life left and right. No one knew why he was doing it. No one even really cared to ask. He wouldn't really answer, and he's silent. But I guess apparently one day someone asked him, do you know the story? It's a famous story, actually. It was like a must, like God and the person. But he said, interesting that this guy's coming up. This is all Revati on the ground. And finally someone asked him, and his answer was, I can't. God is everywhere. I can't walk on the beloved. His answer, he was just meditating on that nonstop, that he couldn't put his feet on God. So, and he didn't know where to put his feet. So it was like this devotion that he was having. He wouldn't have traded that devotion in for a CEO position, because that devotion was giving him some kind of internal joy where he didn't require food. Okay, let me say it this way. When we taste that independence from others giving us joy, or a job giving us joy, or dependency on what people think about us giving us joy, or any of that, when we are free of that, we will not turn that in. That's why some of these people, they'll just be homeless. They will not care. They're not going to explain themselves to you because they obviously have some kind of treasure that the person who's seeking happiness and not finding it doesn't have. They're not going to turn it in to be a CEO. People think these people are incapable. They're very capable, actually. It's just they do not want to trade in their hand of cards for your hand of cards. And so we think they're crazy. It's the upside down. You know, Ladhu Baba, we went to see Sri M, who we both love, and I have to say, you know, he talked of the upside down tree a lot because it's in the Upanishads. It's actually a description that you'll find in Vedic literature, an upside down tree. Something to be deeply contemplated. But so we almost have to turn this world on its head to get joy. And so there's actually a lot of poetry as well, speaking of Revati, Kavi, a lot of poetry about losing shame, losing the idea of anything else and just going straight for what pleases the beloved. Whether, losing religious rules even, and all of these things. So you'll see this repeat. And I've said this very often, so I'll share the screen now. Shukra says very often about Shukra in some way being a planet of mystics, not only Guru, but also Shukra. Because see, Guru is the obvious one. It's not that he's not involved, because he's got a heavy presence in the life of mystics and saints and things like that. Oops, I'm on his chart again. But Shukra ends up being very important, and sometimes even like the Nietzsche point. Okay, so please, guys, that Samasaptak, that 1-7 axis, you can never, everything is married. And so if you get something in the opposite point, it sometimes manifests the exact thing that it's looking at. So this whole thing with Nietzsche, I mean, you almost have that with personality astrology, it definitely needs to be thrown out very often. It's not. I love Togiji's. I love Ladhu Baba's point about the Mercury being debilitated, not being what people think it is, like what you would assume it is. Okay, but you see, Mercury's he's not very drunk. Meena Rashi is a drunk Rashi, and specifically with Nod, with sound. I love that. Sanjay Raji, he also excellent Jyotishi. I mean, I love him. He's excellent. He's got his mastery of Rashis like I've never seen anyone. Like that, if you really care to listen to him, if you really listen to what he's saying, he's really profound points. And he talks about Meena Rashi being the enjoyer of the divine sound. He's one of the only other Jyotishis I've heard point this out, where he goes on and on about it. And it's very true. You'll see this thing, and a big part of it, see Shukra being Ucha there, telling us, the Rishis telling us the story of life through these grahas in a way. Shukra is the one that's he gives union. So he is the enjoyer in a way, the one that allows you to get absorbed. So so it's very clear, like someone being absorbed in a mental state. Our mental state, like Bhav, you are residing in your mental state. Your mental state is your home. If you're happy, you can be happy even in a lightning storm outside on the street with no blanket. If your mental state supports it, you can do that. And samadhi can allow you to do that, but so can madness. It's a fine line, guys. But the soothing, slow quality of someone in that state compared to someone who is mentally disturbed, the mind works very fast in a mental disturbance. The mind is paranoid. These what they're calling God intoxicated people, these musts or these avduts, these people, they are not paranoid. Okay, you will not see that quality of paranoia. The mind is not working fast. If anything, the mind is akash, it's become like one continuous sound. You will feel it in their presence if you're sensitive. I mean, you'll feel it immediately, and you can even get drunk by it in their presence. A person on fire catches other people on fire. Okay, but if you're in contact with a person who's mentally disturbed, let's say disturbance, you will feel that. It's sped up, it's fast, like a hornet's nest. The thoughts are going faster, and that's why such paranoia is there, over processing things, obsessing about things. It's actually, you couldn't get a further pole, but it is almost at the same point at the same time, because it is a loss of the current reality. I mean, but Bhav in a way is it's insinuating, I mean, to be absorbed in a state. Like right now, I'm sitting here unified with whatever this body is, this lifetime. When I wake up in the morning, it's my movie. I perceive you guys, however, right? That is a state of union with something. And Shukra's giving that. And Shukra's giving that union, the taste of that, the rasa of that. Shukra's moon and Shukra are working heavily together to produce this movie. You got them both ruling the second house, and you've got them both getting Digbal in the fourth house, right? And then you've got Shukra Ucha in the 12th, which we're going on. So this is important to understand if you're going to study Jyotish. Like this whole thing with Nietzsche Ucha, first of all, is really poorly, I think, perhaps very surfacely used and not entirely sought to understand. So just because someone has an Ucha Shukra, I want to make this clear, it doesn't mean they're going to have this personality. They actually can be a very dangerous person because it depends on which side of Shukra is coming out. And Shukra can unify himself with vengeance very fast. He's very tit for tat. If he's Rajasic in quality, and that's hard to tell, don't take authority over people where you think looking at their Rashi chart, you can tell if their Shukra is Rajasic or Sattvic or this or that, because just because he's in Revati and he's Sattvic in the Rashi chart, you don't have authority over their consciousness. And there's so much evidence that an Ucha Shukra can make a dangerous person too. So it's clearly not making the mind sattvic, okay? So please, guys, I like everyone listening, please, when you look at these names of Shukra, please realize that this can be in someone with a Shukra and Chitra conjunct Mars and Ketu, okay? Please don't vilify. First of all, Krura Grahas, the malefics, I've always said this. I mean, Radha is Shani in Krishna's chart, okay? She's Shani in Vrishchika Rashi in Krishna's chart, okay? So, because who can live in the forest like that? I mean, she didn't demand to be with him. She didn't demand anything of him. Is that a Somya Graha? No. It wouldn't have the grit to suffer like that. And she begged Uddhava to beg Krishna not to take away her suffering because the suffering was her union. So see, once again, these things, like these kind of names, they're very exalted names. So please think about it in a different way than what we're talking about with exalted. And Ucha doesn't even mean exalted. So I know I've said these things before, but please, on my final request with this, when you look at the divinity of Shukra, don't only think that has to be Revati. The Rishis probably were telling us a different story with all this Ucha Nicha thing than what it's turned into. Okay. So Shukra, in many of his names, he is the one who's really like Muktidaya. I mean, granting freedom, you know, Chitta Samadhi Krite is the name that Dr. Pai was mentioning, is producing Samadhi. You get, once again, Moon and Shukra both have Digbal in the fourth house, which is the midnight point. It's the most intimate point in the entire chart. This is your mind.
Right now we are in midnight.
Oh God. Infinite, no time. See, I'm definitely responsible for the Meena Rashi over here. I was like, I'm always responsible for the delays and please never blame these guys. I'm the one out of order here, mad
No,
person.
we are all like that.
But so guys, to just show you that Shukra, these are names of Shukra that definitely relate to this point in Meena. I mean, for sure, but it does not mean that if a person has Venus in that point, that now we saw it with Shri Anandi Moima.
Yeah.
We did see that Maima, I'm saying it like Bengali, but she you know, we saw it with her, and she has the beautiful Malavya yoga in the first, right? I mean, it's a beautiful chart, really. But you would get another person with Malavya yoga in the first, and they might be, what I'm talking about with Shukra, that tit for tat. You did this, you know, I gave you this. What did you give me? That more Rajasic energy of exchange, which is why Shukra has his Mula Trikona in Tula Rashi, because Tula Rashi is not Sattvic. It is not, and it's about exchange. So if Shukra's Ucha and he has more of that personality, which is not up to you to determine, that takes a certain kind of sight. It actually takes a divine sight to say that you'd have to see the emanations of the Sukshma Jyoti coming from that will warp on the you had to be able to see this. This has to be seen. So please don't look at someone with the Ucha Shukra in the Lagna and assume that they're going to be like a sant by seeing this. Please, this is just not true. It can create, the one thing that's going to be true though, is the ability to get absorbed in something. Just what is it? You know, what is it? That's the thing. So this is definitely the quality that I think the rishis were highlighting with talking about that placement. So even bringing it into suffering. I mean, it's just beautiful. Think about walking through a hot desert and someone gives you a glass of water. You know, this is that energy of Revati, that Pushan, that, you know, and when like most of these saints, when they're really longing for union, the world becomes like a dry desert, right? I mean, it becomes horrible. Getting involved in the world for them becomes horrible. And so for them, you know, their guru or whoever, their master who rescues them from the world becomes their bringing it into suffering, that drink of water in the desert. For someone else, it could be just basically having lodging and food. And that's equally as important, you know, because you're going to meditate on what you don't have if you're suffering over that. So whatever it is, Shukra somehow brings it into suffering, whether it's putting a Band-Aid on a cut, whether it's giving you a glass of water, whatever it is. But these names they're very beautiful. I love the destroying anxiety. I mean, for anyone who wants the Sanskrit names, just please look up the Ashtotram. They're all there. So, but, you know, Shukra, this ability for union is very, very powerful. It's just, what is a union going to be with? And once again, please don't think Shukra with Mangal or something like that. I've had so many women come to me, by the way, with Shukra Mangal conjunction. I have to say this. There's certain conjunctions I'll have people come to me with, and they'll be like, you know, I was told this is really bad. And this is bad for marriage and they're like, but I don't really do that. And I'm like, well, do you know yourself better, or does someone that just looked at that conjunction and like, you had to trust your own knowledge of yourself, first of all. So that tells you it must be doing something else. You know, it must be doing something else. Shukra and Mangal, excellent for yoga. Excellent. Excellent. Right there, you've got dharana and you've got samadhi, both in the same place. So yeah, it's in okay, let's say it's in Ardra or something, and someone's told you you're going to lose your tongue or something. I mean, I hear all kinds of things that people have been told, because like it's in Ardra, and then the person's like, and I'm looking at it and I'm asking the person that's telling me this, I'm saying, well, has that happened? Has it? And they're like, no, on the contrary, this has happened. It's like, okay, once again, trust your autonomy, your Surya. So before you guys go to Jyotishis, any of you listening, please strengthen your Surya, your sense of self, because what we tell you might be wrong. I am including myself in this 100%. I am not perfect. I've made very bad mistakes. All of it. I don't think when Jyotishis behave as if they know everything, run. If they will not admit, okay, doesn't a doctor, I mean, a good doctor should admit that I misdiagnosed you. They should actually, why not? Because you want to get to the truth, right? If you really want to get to the truth, then the obstacle in front of the truth is not important, meaning the image of oneself is not important. It might be important a little bit, but Do you see what I mean here? So this is a critical point, guys. If you go to a Jyotishi, make sure Surya is strong in you. And once again, don't check your chart like, oh, it's in Tula Rashi. Come on. How many strong people I know with Surya and Tula? I can't even count them. It's a very powerful place for Surya. The rishis were highlighting something else about that. It's some other mystery. So please, I'm not saying that you need to strengthen your sun like it's in Mesha or Aries. This is not the concept. Your sense of self, autonomy, and confidence in your knowledge of self. I'm not talking about ego where you're hurting people and they're telling you and you're like, I didn't do anything to them in defense. No, that's not sense of self I'm talking about. I think most of you know what I'm referring to, but have a strong sense of self so that if you sit in front of one of us and we say something that doesn't sit right, your sense of self is not moved, that you recognize our imperfections, because that helps us be better Jyotishis. It helps us be better doctors, let's say, so we're not misdiagnosing you. Okay, you don't have to go to an astrologer and hear that Venus, for a female specifically, that Venus and Mars is conjunct in Aries, so I'm gonna like abuse my partner. It's like, what in the world? Okay, maybe in a handful of conditions that might happen, but I can show you a lot of charts with no Venus Mars conjunction where the woman might be verbally intense. Okay, so this is not the truth, and it doesn't mean you're going to have passion that someone can't satisfy, or so. I mean, all these things you have to be really careful. So, guys, if you've heard things, Rahu Jupiter, this is another one I hear a lot of panic about. The Guru Chandal yogas. The Shani Ketu, the Preta yogas, all these things, no one's going to get hurt. You're not going to lose an arm. Your partner's not going to abuse you. You're not going to become a drug addict tomorrow, whatever it is. Just please, Yama's not waiting to hit you over the head when you exit the door. If he was, you'd already be hit. Look at the truth of who you are and the truth of your life, and then come to us. Have confidence in that first. And then maybe even what we're allowed to say to you from the grahas. The other side of your responsibility coming to a Jyotishi is actually whether you are able to hear the information, whether the grahas permit us to tell you the accurate thing. That has to do with you too, and what you're in union with, what your mind is in union with. It's not like you're just going to get every answer that you want because you're anxious about your life. All of us are anxious about our lives in some way. Everyone suffers. So that's not a necessarily special thing to suffer. It's not going to move the universe to soothe your anxiety through a Jyotishi. As a matter of fact, what I see a lot is the people that are more anxious get more anxiety by going to Jyotishis. So this is funny. This is coming up on Revati, very funny. But so my plea with all of you, like when you're reading these names, you're translating them. I've always recommended this for learning Jyotish, and especially for the Ucha point, the real meaning of the Ucha point, not in a horoscope, but in the book of life. Okay, it's telling a story. Look at it in a broad way. When you're reading this, think of that as the ideal quality of Shukra. And if I don't have those qualities in my life, I have the ability to act. I have the ability to cultivate those qualities. You are not taken out of bed by the grahas and dressed. Okay, if you just laid there, do you think that like Mangal's gonna come and like get you out of bed? I mean, maybe in the form of your mom or something, but really we do have to act. The word karma implies action. It implies Brahma is present in the word karma because of ka. So Brahma is creative principle. If you created it, you can create your way out. So the real thing with reading these names is that these are the ideal functional qualities of the graha. And when you think about the nakshatra that is ucha in, is the ideal qualities. It does not mean a person with the ucha graha in that is going to behave like that at all. If the moon or the sun is in a certain condition, that person's personality might even not, the karmic structure isn't even allowed to be there for that planet to do this. Okay, so, you know, it's said in many of the Purans and the Shastras, so I'd say the Purans, you'll see constantly that some rishi or another is, or some devata is making the point that even to say a mantra or have the good karma to pray at all, like to say any mantra, is a purva punya karma. Like you have to have had the grace in the past to even come in contact with some kind of divine knowledge that lets you break out of prison. But it has to start somewhere. The seed has to come from something. So on this Revati Nakshatra, guys, please know the limits, since Revati is the unlimited place, the unlimited Nakshatra, the formless, you could say, the Nirguna, where we got Saguna in Chitra. We've got all the qualities and all the architecture in Tamas, because Tamas is form, the material body. It's not dark and bad and all this. It's your material. Chitra is material. That's all it is mechanical. And so then you've got your Saguna, Guna is all in Chitra, and you've got your Nirguna in Revati. And so please realize that most of us Jyotishis are not Nirguna. We're not enjoying that state, and the ones that may be are probably more hidden. I don't know, they might come public, but maybe I'm just speaking for myself. I can't speak for these guys. I love these guys. I mean, if they're enjoying a divine state, they can tell you. But I definitely know for myself, I have no authority. And in my experience is a lot of you coming with anxiety. And so we should not be increasing that. And we also cannot tell you what you want to hear just to relieve that. So it is an odd thing when you're coming to Jyotish. I really encourage you to have autonomy, self-responsibility, and a sense of self that allows you to receive from the astrologer. And that will allow, I believe, the grahas to give you better information, actually. Because if you come up with a wall of all this stuff that you're afraid of, it gets
Okay, I have to leave, man. I have to leave now.
I think
So
what we'll do,
yeah,
Yuji, is
I have
that
to
what I
leave.
can request also, Yuji, if you could just do a closing prayer of sorts, which will be great.
yes.
And it's a great omen that today doing for Revati Nakshatra, it's a 12th house, and you see all this. I'm under
Nice.
under
All
the
the great gurus. Yeah.
great gurus here. So yeah,
Yes.
no, no.
Oh my
Omens
God, it's
always
so
work.
great. Yes, sorry. Must be the Revati. I'm very, very sorry.
Any closing prayers here?
Yeah. Trayambakam yajamahe sugandhim pushtivardhanam urvarukamiva bandhanam mrutyurmukshiyamamrita. Om Namah Shivaya.
Great. Thank you all for being patient. Again, and the Bollywood movie is over. Hopefully, we'll continue the next series and so forth. It's great. Namaste.